All right, on this episode of the DDT Method podcast, we're not going to waste any fucking time. Nathan, break this down for me because I want to just understand because it's confusing. It's not confusing. Some people swear they're this, some people swear they're that. People want to learn all about these things and how to take them, how to maximize everything about health, performance, et cetera, et cetera. What the fuck is a bioregulator?
So that's a good question, man. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be back here and talk to you guys. Got some crazy feedback from the people that are your cult followers, man. They're absolutely great people. I love meeting every single one of them. I've been talking to a lot of them, and bioregulators. I think that we're bringing a conversation that people are normally not having in our space, and I think that we are missing on a lot. Like, We're going to cover some pretty interesting thing about bioregulators, especially with regards to like how people talk about them versus what they actually do. And I think this is going to clear up a lot of misconceptions, and it's going to serve pretty much as my goal is for this to be basically a masterclass and just a little taste of what's inside of my course for my community of like what bioregulators really are, because it's they are fucking fantastic. Like, once you understand the science behind them, they're fucking fantastic. So let me start this way. Because I like anyone who's getting like in their head about like this type of stuff, like the second you put bioregulators in the right context, I think like the whole thing basically starts clicking, right? Like you start with what you already have, right? So you probably know someone who's taking a statin, who's taking like thyroid meds. There's plenty of guys on TRT for our population here. Like, all of these are on medications in the everyday sense, like, which is, what is a medication? It's just a molecule you put in your body to actually push a system in one direction, and the body just does that thing as long as the drug is hanging around. Very important part here, okay? So think of it like you're holding the door open with your hand. The door is going to stay open while your hand is there. The moment you take your hand away and you walk away, the door is going to close. So you take the pill again tomorrow and the day after forever, because the effect basically dies. That's what happens with medications, right? And then we have the peptide world. And a lot of people who are listening, they already gone this route. Like, they took BPC 157 for their shoulder. They took TB 500 for soft tissue repair, GHK maybe for like skin, connective tissue, growth hormones, secretagogues, if you're into that kind of stuff. Like, all of these are very, very useful. I've talked extensively about peptides. I have a 25-hour course on peptides alone, and bioregulators, they are peptides, but they're different, right? There's the thing to hold on to it is that almost every peptide, the way they work is by mimicking a signal that your body already makes. So, or the other option here is that they knock on a receptor door, and then, which is just like basically a docking port, like outside of the cell. It's not on the inside of the cell. When someone plugs it in, and then it kicks off a chain reaction inside of the cell. So a peptide is basically like a messenger that's just standing on the outside of the building, is ringing the buzzer, and then the building responds. And again, when the messenger leaves, the buzzing stops and the building goes back to whatever it was doing. So it's the same logic as a medication, actually, but it's just a little bit more targeted and a more like biological version of it, right? It's not a it's a little bit different than a medication because it's not forcing a system specifically. It's talking the language that your body already talks, which is like how I explain peptides. But here's where I want to plant the flag here for us, because this is the part that most people have never been explained properly. There is a third category, and it's a distinct type of peptide called a bioregulator. Now, when you think about the name bioregulator, what do we think it's doing? Well, it's regulating biology. Okay, so that's kind of cool. So it doesn't work at all like any of the things that we just talked about. It definitely doesn't work like supplements. It's not a molecule that you have to keep topping up because the effect fades the moment that it clears out of your system. A bioregulator is a very, very tiny peptide that is so tiny that's actually able to get inside of the cell all the way to the nucleus, all the way to the nucleolus, which is the innermost part of the cell. And then basically like it's going to lock itself like into the control room where all of your genetic instructions are kept, and is going to interact with those instructions themselves. So picture like the way that I explain everything in my peptide course is by using an analogy of a building and a city, right? So if you imagine your body was a city, every organ is going to be a building in that city, right? Inside of the basement of every single one of those buildings, there's going to be an instruction manual, a very, very thick operating manual. That is your DNA. So that tells you the building exactly how to run. It's basically the SOP of the entire operation. So ordinary medications and every peptide pretty much, they are workers on the floors. They're lifting things, they're moving signals between the rooms, they're doing all the useful work. A bioregulator is more like a tiny foreman who's just going to walk all the way down to the building. It's going to open the manual, and then it's going to change which pages get read today, like right now. So that's a completely different level of action here. And I want to be very welcoming about this, because the first thing that people hear is like, oh, it changes which genomes are read. So they get a little bit nervous because of like gene editing and like, some permanent changes to the DNA, but nothing here is cutting your DNA. It's not rewriting the code itself. It's just that the instruction manual, the manual that's in the bottom of like the basement of every building, it doesn't change at all. Okay, what changes is which instructions the cell chooses to read and to act on right now, and that is normal. Like every day, like normal things that we do on a daily basis. Like your cells are doing that every single second of your life. They're already deciding which pages of the manual to open and which ones to leave shut. Right. So a bioregulator just basically nudges that decision very, very, very gently. And that's the important key here for us, in a direction that tends to favor repair and normal function, the way that like a skin cell and a liver cell, they read different pages, but they're part of the same manual. It's the same book, but it has different bookmarks. So that's the whole game. So that's the map for everything that I'm going to say. Like bucket 1 is going to be medications, which is going to push the system and it's going to fade. Bucket 2 is the most familiar one that everyone is familiar with, right? Is the peptides, which works on the surface cell, on the receptors, on the docking points of the cells, because they're long, right? You think about BPC-157 is a pentadecapeptide. So it's very long. Think about growth hormone is 191 to 192 amino acids long. Insulin is 50. Thymosin alpha-1 is 28, if I'm not mistaken. TB500 is like 17. And then a TB4, I believe, is like 47. But they're super, super big. They cannot get on the inside of the cell. So the issue that you face with peptides is that receptors, they internalize. So they basically downregulate. That's what downregulation means. That is exactly why when you take GH secretagogues, the signal actually starts diminishing from your very first dose. So like from the first dose to the second dose, you already get a slower signal, which is one of the ways I had someone ask me, like, if there's something that we could do about, like organ and bone enlargement that came from peptides and stuff like that. And actually one of the things that we could do is to use growth hormone secretagogues, because that's going to downregulate your own production to the point that you're going to be at a lower point than you were when you started, which is why you see people starting and getting a very good response, but then like not getting any good response at all afterwards, right? And so bucket 3 is going to be the bioregulators, which are working with the manual itself. You can see now there's like 3 very clear buckets. The rest of it is going to make a whole lot more sense when we start talking about this. Now, the reason I take bioregulators very seriously is not because like people are talking about it or because they're trendy, because they're really not. Like people don't talk about it. Like most people don't really know about it. I don't know how many questions you got on your Instagram before that, but like I've got like 3 or 4 questions because most people don't even know about them. But these are like literally, these are one of the most long-running like clinical stories in all of peptide science, and almost nobody in the West world knows about it. So I just want to give you a little bit of the history of like how they came about, because this is super fucking interesting. So it goes back to this one guy called Vladimir Kavinson. He was born in the mid 1900s. And he passed away in early January of 2024, when he was just 77 years old. So you're looking at a body of work that basically spans his entire adult life. He graduated in Leningrad in the 70s. And so he came out of like the military. He graduated of the medical academy of something that I don't remember, Kirov or whatever the fuck. It's just, there's so much Russian literature and I don't know how to pronounce Russian names for shit. So I had to get a Russian translator to help me with the papers here. Now, when the program for bioregulators, it began by the Soviet Ministry of Defense in 1973. So the brief they gave to Kavinson was very, very specific, right? His job was to protect soldiers, submariners, and cosmonauts from accelerated aging, because when you put a human being under a lot of like operational stress, which is like, okay, now stress, like that's a word that I know, right? That's something that we hear a lot in like in our field. It's like, exactly, we're starting connecting the dots here. Like when you put someone like in a fucking ocean for months, or when you are just like there's just soaking the fucking orbit with a bunch of like radiation, your body is going to age faster. So there are certain things that are basically going to age faster, right? And the systems that you have in your body, they're going to age quicker. And then there's these structures around your DNA, which are chromatin structures. They're basically going to wrap itself so tight around DNA that your DNA is not going to be able to be read. So this is a very, very, very big problem. And the military wanted to slow that down to keep their people functioning for a longer period of time. So this doesn't start actually as a longevity or like a beauty thing at all. It started as like a hard problem that they saw in like high value people who are under these brutal fucking conditions. So he had a co-developer through all of this, which is called Morozov, and he doesn't get enough credit, but I give him the credit where credit is due. They both built this foundation together. So in 1981, is basically like a little bit less than 10 years afterwards, we had our first bioregulator. So they brought thymolin, which was the very first clinical use. And it's where are these things derived from? They're derived from calf thymus. So thymus is a gland that sits like right behind your chest breastbone, and it's basically the regulatory center of your entire body for your immune system. So you think about like, oh, your immune system, who gives a shit? I'm a PED user. Yeah, dude, you know that like training itself, like without androgens, already downregulates immune function. So like if you like, that's why when you're in a hard training block or doing prep, you get sick more often, right? And the thymus actually starts shrinking and losing all of its informational value and transcriptional capacity by the age of 12. So by the time you reach 60, it basically the tissue of your thymus had already been completely almost substituted by fat, which has no value whatsoever. It doesn't carry any sort of information with it. So like we know, DNA is basically a strand of 4 letters that's just written down in like trillions of strings long, right? And whenever you have something that like is not able to express this directly, the way that your DNA is being read is going to be more compact, which just means the information is not going to be readable, which is how aging happens. So aging is not, and this is an important point, it is not a degradation of your system. It's not just like shit slowing down. Aging is actually the loss of your body's ability to read the gene information itself. So slowly with time, your body essentially forgets how to deal with diseases, how to like reconstitute your retina, how to like prevent your prostate from enlarging, like all of these things that are very relevant for us, how to keep your liver functioning, how to keep your endothelial cells, which are basically the largest like muscle organ in the body is just your cells, the endothelial cells, right? The inner walls of them as well. Like this takes a lot of hit with PED use, so it's extremely relevant for our population. So in 1983, basically when thymolin came out, they call the basically like peptide bioregulation, right? Which is this idea that like these short peptides, they can act as a restorative signals telling the tissues how to run properly, right? So in the 90s, he founded the St. Petersburg Institute of Bioregulation and Gerontology. Gerontology is just science of aging. And then he directed the institute like right up to the moment of his death. And it wasn't like some fringe figure just like shouting from the fucking sidelines, because like we have like in 2000, in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, I don't remember dates very exactly, but he served as the president of the European region of International Association of Gerontology and Geriatrics, right? Like he's a very important person. This is not just like one guy who got paid by the government to create pharmaceuticals for other people to use, which is how people think about it when they think about bioregulations. So the part that I think should make like any reasonable person sit up is that by the end of his life, the first criticism that we see with bioregulators is that people say, oh, there's no evidence. Okay, by the end of Cavinson's life, if we're not counting anyone else that did studies, if we're not counting Chiara Pescara in Italy, the Jin Song-Seng Institute in Korea, like if we're not counting the Medical Academy of China, like if we're not counting the Georgian institutes, the Ukrainian institutes, the non-partners within Russia itself, he left behind more than, dude, how many papers do you think this guy published on bioregulators alone?
I'm assuming a pretty decent deal, at least that exists.
Yeah. People say there's no evidence. He published more than 700 peer-reviewed papers, and he patented almost 200 patents. And he left behind 6 peptide pharmaceuticals that actually went into real clinical use. So real registered drugs that real doctors prescribe and real doctors wrote case reports that we are learning from them. So just think about that volume for a second. That's not like it's not a fucking weekend project. It's not just, this is 50 plus years of academic and research institutional work behind it. It's the fucking cathedral, dog. It's not just a raggedy ass building falling apart. The catalog of bioregulators, people normally know about Epidolon. They might know about like Thymogen or something like that. It's 53 compounds, dude. It's a lot of fucking drugs. So today the catalog actually runs at that amount, and there's more bioregulators being developed because you got to think like we're going to talk about like different types of bioregulators, but they're basically extracted from a specific tissue in an organ, and then they isolate which are the active components, and then they basically create synthetic versions out of it. So when somebody just waves fucking bioregulators as unproven, my answer is that, oh, you just don't open PubMed, like ever. You know, like that's just like we have half a century of continuous use, man. We have an institute, we have a mountain of published work, we have registered pharmaceuticals, we have a founder who sat on top of the international aging research community. Tell me which peptide has that. Because people are willing to inject pretty much any fucking peptide as long as there's like one fucking mouse study. We look at SLU, it has 4 studies and people are using it. I'm using it, right? Like, but it's all extrapolated data. But like, there's no single like giant Western like placebo-controlled trials on every single compound. This is true, right? It's a limitation of bioregulators. So I'll tell you where the limitation exists because I created a categorizing system so that when we talk about bioregulators, we can say like, no, these ones we have really good evidence. This ones we do not have really good evidence. This one is just rat studies. This one has an RCT and all this type of stuff. But like 50 years of clinical history, I think that this is kind of like the institutional depth behind like it's a strength, right? It's not just a fringe or like curious use that you could just easily dismiss. If you read the research, you're going to see that this thing is taken very, very seriously, academically speaking. So to answer your question, now that we understand a little bit more behind the history behind it, because it's like, holy shit, like it's 700 papers. Like I actually surveyed 500 papers to the creation of my course. So I went over 500 actual fucking papers, including clinical trials, case reports, and all of this type of stuff. Obviously, I didn't read 500 fucking papers, but I surveyed all of them, and then I read a fuck ton of papers. Just an ordinary drug and familiar peptides, like the almost all of them, they act pharmacologically, right? They hit a receptor, the receptor switches on, or they even replace a signal that your body is short of, or they even block a signal that there's too much of in your body. So in every one of those cases, the effect that we have of them is going to ride and depend on the presence of the drug. So the moment the molecule just clears out of your system, the button unpushes itself and you drift back towards where you start, which is why like, when people ask me like, hey, so how do you like maintain the effect of peptides after you continue using them? You don't. That's not how they work. But that is how bioregulators works. So that's why you got to take a statin every day. You got to inject your TRT every week, preferably every day if you're smart, because you got to be continuously holding the system. Bioregulators, they work at the level of gene expression. Now, let's get into the actual science here, okay? Gene expression, like when people talk about genetics, one of the things that frustrates me the most is that they don't explain what the fuck these things mean. So I want to give it to you guys in a way that's like very, very understandable. The way that I walk through my courses, I have like a full lecture just on the terminology, a full lecture just on the actual science behind it. It's explained through analogies and stuff. And then we slowly start building up for you to be able to read like academic papers and build your own protocols. So your DNA is basically the full instructional manual for your entire body. Gene expression is just simply like which one of those instructions are being actively read and turned into proteins that are active at any particular moment in time, and which pages of the manual are going to be open, and which ones are going to be acted on versus which ones are going to be closed and then not acted on. So bioregulators works on that. It influences exactly which genes are read. So it's acting at the very top of the command chain. If you want to talk about like upstream, it doesn't get more upstream than a bioregulator. So there's some few specific terms here for us, right? So let me just unpack a couple of terms before we get into the science. Transcriptional. Bioregulators are transcriptional. It just means that they work at a step where the gene gets read off the DNA, right? So that's the very first reading step instead of acting on the cell surface and then pushing a receptor in a signaling cascade. So they are also sequence specific, which means a bioregulator doesn't bind to DNA directly or anywhere at random. It's very selective. It prefers one particular spot, particular like letter patterns, these 4-letter patterns, these 3-letter patterns, they're going to be in your genetic code. And bioregulator is going to fit in that the way that a key fits in a lock, but it doesn't fit on others. So they're tissue targeted, meaning that a given peptide, a given bioregulator is going to act on particularly one system and one organ, which is where they get their name from. So you can get like, even there's some interesting things that happen, which is like a pineolon, when it was first discovered, it was discovered as a pineolon bioregulator. But then we started understanding that, oh, it doesn't act on the pineal. That's just a consequence of the effects that we have on them. So the word that I really want you to sit with is that it is restorative. So whenever we're talking about restoring function, you're talking about bioregulators. There's no peptide that does that, and anyone telling you that a peptide basically restores function, it doesn't understand the signaling cascade, because by definition it doesn't, because it's not interacting with your DNA. Now, GHK is interesting because GHK is a tripeptide, but it's bound to a copper ion. So it's small enough like a bioregulator, but because it's bound to a metal ion, it actually acts a little bit differently. But we're going to get there. Now, the consequence of this is that, like, this is one of my favorite things. You take very small doses of them, and you only take them like over a very short period of time. The magic actually happens in the after period, not while you're taking it. And you see these effects accumulating over a long period of time, because you're not trying to flood the system with the signal. That's not how they work. They're very gentle. You're just placing a small instruction in the right spot of that book and saying, read this page right here. And this page that was, think about it like this, like your DNA is like basically like a bunch of books that are in a library. As you age, the books are still there, but they're getting progressively put into a higher shelf, higher shelf, higher shelf. And if it gets to a point that you can't open them. And another analogy that I use is like, you could have the perfect manual and it's still going to have all of the information. But because it's old, there's a lot of humidity, you know, it wasn't like temperature control, all of this shit, because there's downgradation that is happening, inflammaging and all of these things. The pages basically start getting shut close together. And then you cannot read the information that is inside of that gene, right? So bioregulators, they basically start opening these things up, and you're able to read your own genetic material and basically start restoring your body's like natural function that you used to have when you were younger. So you can think of in terms of like anti-aging, but for our population specifically, it's like, oh, we beat the fuck out of our systems. So if we are doing that, we are literally aging faster. So when people say like, oh, you're by doing steroids, you're taking years off your life. That means we are aging faster. That's exactly what it means. So the only thing that can actually work in a restorative fashion is bioregulators. Now, the consequence of this is that you don't take them year round, the way that you take them like a normal medication, because you are just nudging the cell's own program. Once you basically tell the cells that like we're ready to like read this program, read these instructions and stuff like that, once you made that nudge, the effects persist after the compound has cleared. So like for one bioregulator that we have, they measure like the effects of this bioregulator up to 15 years after the bioregulator use, and they continuously saw improvements. Some of them you can see in blood work, others of them you need some very, very fancy and expensive tests. But in general, like you don't have to take them continuously. It's a very short cycle, just 1 to 4 times a year, depending on how old you are, how beat up your system is. But the low dose pattern is exactly like how it's the opposite of like how most peptides run. Like so, now that we have this basic like understanding of it, the main difference between a bioregulator and a peptide is the size. So, BPC 157 is a pentadecapeptide. Like I said, most bioregulators, they are 2 to 4 amino acids long. That is super fucking tiny. If it was less than 2 amino acids long, it actually loses the ability to store information. If it's more, it's not able to enter all the way into the nucleolus, which is the innermost part of the cell. So you can think of like bioregulators are just like these very, very small things and like just 2 to 4 beads long, right? And that smallness is the whole fucking trick. It's the just picture like there's 2 locked security doors between the street and the basement of the building, right? And most molecules, they have to get through the first door, and then they pass a note to someone else who is inside of it. And then that person is going to send out a signaling cascade that's going to tell the people who are working in the building, which are like your hormones and the other proteins and stuff like that, basically what to do. Bioregulators, they're small enough that they just basically crawl through the vent. and then they just go all the way to the manual itself. So that is what like crossing through your like genetic envelope intactly means. It's just it's just one fucking trip and it reaches your DNA specifically. Now, when I say that it binds specific DNA sequences in a tissue targeted way, it means that it finds one particular page in the manual. So it doesn't land anywhere in your DNA. It reads the genetic letters, the four-letter structure of the alphabet that we have, and is going to land on a pattern that matches that particular part. The way that you would flip to like a specific chapter or a Bible verse that you want to address, it's not because the book like just open at random, right? And tissue targeted means that like when you pull a bioregulator out of the a cortex tissue, it's going to store that information and it's going to act in your cortex. So that's really fucking cool. It doesn't just act systemic. There's no bioregulator that acts systemically. Peptides, they act systemically. Medications, they have effects on other parts of your organs, right? This tissue specificity just means it's going to target one organ as opposed to targeting a specific system. So when I say it's like an epigenetic reader and a writer, it sounds very technical and it's kind of like scary. I remember when I started studying genetics, I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, this is a whole new world and I have no idea how to even start. But epigenetics, when you think about Greek, I have a background in the languages here. Epiten katedron, it just means on top of the desk. It's like epigenetics means that it's acting on top of your genetic material. It's very simple. So epigenetics is just the layer of bookmarks that you have and a bunch of sticky notes that are sitting on top of the DNA that's basically telling the cells like which pages to read and which pages to skip without ever changing the words on the page. So there's no concern that bioregulators act directly on your DNA, changing your DNA. That literally doesn't happen. We have very specific ways of understanding how this thing happens, right? So a reader can just basically like tell which one of those bookmarks to say out loud, and a writer is something that you can like place and then remove, and a bioregulator can do a little bit of both. It can both write genetic code and it can read genetic code. It's going to find a specific page and it's going to check whether it's flagged with a post-it note that says skip this because of like aging, disease, chronic stress, fatigue, PED abuse and stuff like that, and it's going to influence, it's going to remove that post-it note, it's going to say nope, read this right here, right? So the part that's important is that and the people get it wrong is like it's not a hormone as well, right? It's not like testosterone or it's not a body-wide signal. It's just very, very, very specific, actions here. So that's just essentially like how bioregulators act. We have two families of bioregulators. So we have a cytogen and a cytomax, right? So there's two types of bioregulators. Whenever you go on the on BioLongevity website, you see there's a bunch of bioregulators. They have a letter and a number behind them. That's because they are one type of bioregulator, and then they're also oral preparations, whereas the other ones have to be injected. There's even a bioregulator that's supposed to be used as a suppository. So if you guys want to, this is one of the opportunities that I have to just shove a bioregulator up your ass because that's literally the treatment on how they studied it, right? So a synthetic cytogen is going to be a short peptide that has a very known synthetic sequence, right? It has a defined sequence. So picture like you're writing a short recipe that is just like 2 to 3 ingredients. You basically pick up the whole like kitchen sink, like you grab every single thing out of the pantry and you realize that like, oh, this makes good food. But what exactly is making good food, right? So like for epitolon, it actually is extracted out of epithylamine. So epitolon is going to be a tetrapeptide. It's going to be 4 amino acids long. So you're going to get alanine, glutamate, aspartate, and glycine, if I'm not mistaken. And all of these peptides, the synthetic ones, they get abbreviated by the letter that it represents to. So for epitolon, this is the one that we talk about the most, is ADG. So that's the entire content of the vial. You get nothing else. You just get 4 amino acids long, right? And then there's proteins that are bounding those amino acids to one another. A thymogen is going to be just 2 beads long. It's just like incredibly fucking small. A violon is another one, right? There's just a bunch of them. A cytomax is going to be the other side of the family. So like, just think about like nature. Nature is like maximally fucking cool. So that's what a cytomax is, right? It's just a natural part of it. It's the one that people reach the most because they think like, oh, this is more like bioidentical. That's not actually how they work. So instead of building like one molecule from scratch inside of a lab, you actually take the organ tissue, usually from young calves, but sometimes from rabbits as well. And then you run an extraction protocol that was created by Cavenson himself that's going to pull out the family of short peptides that tissue normally uses for the own internal signaling of that tissue. So the output is not one pure molecule like it is with a synthetic one. It's actually a complex mixture of very small peptides that are native to that specific organ. So picture like you're walking into a particular basement. Let's go back to the thymus here, right? You walk into the thymus basement. and you're copying this whole bundle of foreman who's just working there. And then there's like a bottling like that bundle so that it can be handed to someone else. You just pick every single foreman and you give to these people. So these are going to come in the A series. So A1 all the way to A21. So there's 21 cytomax-like peptides, right? Each one of them is going to be like be sold as an oral capsule, because that's how they were developed. And then there's also a cytomax. Just think of it as like basically the natural form, right? That's just basically what I want to get to. Now, there's also a third label here. Some bioregulators, they also are called pharmaceutical preparations. So people read that and they think like, oh, a pharmaceutical is obviously better than a cytomax that has been just like a mix of like vitamins and peptides and all this type of stuff. It's way more specific, and it's like, no. That just means the compound has been formally registered as a drug in the home country that it was created, that it has like documented manufacturer standards, it has quality control, it has a registered dose, it has an approved dose, and it has an approved route of administration. So thymolin, cortexin, retinolamine, prostaglandin, and epithalamin, these are all registered drugs. These are not like peptides, they're not supplements or anything like that. But that is a regulatory tag. It is not an evidence tier, right? It doesn't tell you that the peptide is better. It's just, it doesn't tell you like how strong you should feel about this. It just says like, hey, going back to the kitchen passed the health inspection. That's all it means. So the conflation here is that like people think that the pharmaceutical one is just like automatically better. That's not the case at all. Like we're it's like really good is that like you have some compounds that you have a cytomax, a cytogen, and a pharmaceutical preparation. So like how do you choose between them? We can get to that like at some point. But in general, like there are three routes that are used. There's sublingual, there's intramuscular or subcutaneous via injection, and there's also oral route. Like these are the ways that these are carried out. So when we ask like, okay, but peptides, I thought that they couldn't interact with your like gut. They get destroyed in the gut, right? So very, very cool. But in 2000, in the mid 2000s, there's a study that came out characterizing this very, very small piece of machinery that's built like into the cell linings of your small intestine. It's called PEPT1, so PEPT1. It just stands for peptide transporter 1. So think of it like, now we're talking about like how it enters the cell. Like it's basically like a backdoor service entry that the gut wall is only able to accept a very, very small specific size. So for dipeptides and tripeptides, you can take the oral route. But I see a lot of vendors selling tetrapeptides orally as well. And those actually don't fit. Literally, like if it's more than 3 amino acids long, you're at the limit. It's PEPT1 is not going to accept. What happens when it doesn't accept? It hydrolyzes itself. So what does that mean is that the peptide sequence gets broken down into amino acids. So it's basically you're taking a BCEA. It's fucking useless. The information is in the sequence that these peptides are stacked, to the point that you have some mirror images of peptides where you have like a D and an L version, which is literally the same exact fucking peptide, but like thymogen is going to boost your immune system, is going to make your immune system more active. That's the L version of it. If you flip that, just like your hands are flipped, it's just literally the same fucking thing, just like one side versus the other. If you flip that, it becomes thymopressin, which basically suppresses your immune system. So they are super, super, super fucking specific. This is very documented, like Cavinson and this research called Lakova, I believe, in 2022, they wrote a review, and there's also an independent group in Munich, in another use that use like mass spectrometry to basically like decide which peptides can actually survive the intestinal tract. So the transporter has a very hard ceiling. If it's more than 4 amino acid peptide long, it's not going to work. So this already tells you like, hey, if you're looking at a vendor and they're selling like oral epidolon, which I've seen before, you're losing a whole fucking lot of the genetic material that you would otherwise actually be able to use. So like the thing that I prefer to go injectable route for every single bioregulator. So that's just basically like how bioregulators work in a very general fashion. I want to get specific into some other ones, but I wanted to stop to see if you have any questions up to this point.
You know, normally I would, but you broke that down so perfectly. So I just want to circle back a little bit just for anybody that might be kind of like half paying attention and might have missed some of the key points there. Psst. Hey, just got to get your attention really quickly because I want to tell you about the DDT Method School Group. At the time of recording, there's over 80 deep dive videos, 20, 30, 40-minute videos where I go into all the details on your favorite peptides, PEDs, training styles, nutrition tips and tricks, everything you can ever imagine, and all the stuff that goes so deep, I can't even talk about it on YouTube. Plus, me and my whole team are in there answering your questions, tons of exclusive offers and affiliate deals that you can take advantage of and save money. And you get to support the podcast. It's all just $10 per month. The link's down in the description comment thing down there where I write all the stuff and whatnot. It's good stuff. Check it out. DDT Method School Group. The way that I'm kind of seeing this and understanding it is we have this like standard operating procedural like book for just our biological processes. Simply comparing drugs to bioregulators, just to simplify it for people. If that book is Lord of the Rings and you really want to get to the part where Gandalf fights the fucking fire thing on the bridge, I'm sorry for any diehards. I like it, but I'm not like that well versed. A drug would be basically opening the book and just writing that scene into the book, and you're getting the scene that you want to see, but you might fuck up the total story because you don't know if you're putting it right where it needs to go. You might read that scene, then 40 minutes later, Gandalf's fighting it again, right?
It's a little bit different. It actually doesn't interact with the book at all. It doesn't even touch the book. It just basically interacts with proteins in your system and hormones that are going to trigger a bunch of other proteins, like signaling cascades is just proteins acting. These guys are going to do the heavy lifting, but you don't interact with the book at all. You are just operating by the letter of the book. So you can't change the book. You can't highlight a portion of the book. If you are in a place, let's say, of like chronic inflammation, you can throw a bunch of like anti-inflammatory peptides, but you're still going to be working from a standing point of your body prioritizes inflammation over other less abrasive forms of like reading your genetic material. So the only thing that is able to actually interact with your genetic material is going to be very, very short peptides, which is one of the reasons why GHK copper is basically able to be used for exosome therapy in a way to like prepare the territory, because it's so small that it can interact with your genetic material itself. But GHK copper is an exception out of every other peptide. And it's also one of the things that makes it incredibly fucking cool and just disrespectful to talk about it as a skin and longevity protocol. But yeah.
All right. So drugs are, you want Lord of the Rings, you want the Gandalf versus the fire guy. Drugs are just kind of writing that scene down on a piece of paper and giving it to you.
They're forcing it. Exactly. They're just making it fucking happen at all costs. So like, this is why you get a long list of side effects. And when you read Bioregulators, there's only one mention of side effects, which is, I think it comes from a Cochrane review in 2023, which is like basically the highest standard of like literary like evaluation of a field. So we have a Cochrane review on cortexin specifically, but it just forces the system. It's just like, oh, you want to lower your blood pressure? Well, fuck you. You're going to lower your blood pressure right fucking now. But it doesn't tell you like, hey, the reason your blood pressure is like high is because your epithelial cells have basically lost the ability to contract and become more volatile as you go with time. So a bioregulator is able to like nudge the system and just be like, oh, you guys had closed that page shut because of training stress, because you got like, you know, that big C19 virus, you know, and stuff like that. Like we have a lot of like cases of this specifically. We have a comparison trial of tocilizumab versus like an actual like a thymic bioregulator, and we saw that like, holy shit, it was a better result. You had less mortality with a bioregulator versus the most used, medication for that big word that we can't pronounce, right? The impronounceable word. It doesn't force your system in any way whatsoever. It just allows your body to read the material that you had when you were younger. So it's effectively the most like groundbreaking thing when we have in terms of longevity, which is something that, you know, PD users, they tend to not care about, but the point that I'm trying to make is like, no, you are aging faster. That's what it means to take the stress toll of these drug uses. So if we are able to basically reteach your system how to behave how it used to before all of this drug use, then maybe you're not going to need a lot of drugs. So like one thing that I see, it's like when you have the whole like protocol for like thyroid, which we can get into it, you don't get like, you don't have to use as high doses of T3 and other things, because now your system knows how to act because of thyrogen, right? Like you don't need to use a very high dose of blood pressure medications because of Vesogen, because of basically a compound that's telling your system to function in a way that it used to when you were younger. So that's basically the difference that we have.
So the drugs are just writing that fucking Gandalf scene on a piece of paper and shoving it in your face. The bioregulators are flipping to that page in the book and not disrupting the entire story. It's just giving you that page in the book without kind of artificially just shoving it somewhere where it will be effective. It'll give you that part of the story, but not necessarily in a way that's totally risk free. So with the
Exactly.
bioregulators, we're reading it as it should be. Makes perfect sense.
Which is why, when I basically teach people how to evaluate bioregulators, because one of the critiques that people have, which I want to get to later, is that bioregulators don't work. I took it and I didn't feel anything. Obviously, you didn't feel anything because it's not forcing your system to do anything right now. It's just basically nudging your system to start behaving in a way that it used to. So you're not going to notice that, like, you have like a better, like, that your cortex is relaying information a little bit better. You can see that over the course of a year of bioregulator exposure, but you are not going to see that immediately like you would with like taking Samax and methylene blue and Nupept in one go, right? Like, it's not Adderall. It's just going to nudge your system in the right direction very, very gently. So like from this get-go, is like you cannot really use your subjective feelings to dictate whether a bioregulator works better or not. Like, if you're talking thyroid medication, you absolutely can. Subjective feeling is often even better than the blood markers, because it's measuring how it's actually acting in your body down to the cellular level. Whereas with the blood, you're just like relaying the information on the thermostat, but it doesn't tell you what the temperature in the room is. It just tells you what the thermostat is set as, right? So that's just the general idea.
So, what are some of your favorite bioregulators in terms of things that can move the needle for people that you think the most people can benefit from implementing, at least implementing correctly? Like, what are some of these? We know that they're very case specific and things that we want to improve, affect, et cetera, et cetera. But what's something that you feel most people can benefit from that maybe we're fucking up with our training, our lifestyle, et cetera, et cetera? And what can they expect as a result of these therapies?
Okay, so the way that I categorize a bioregulator is I basically created a tier structure so that you know how to read the evidence, because some of them, like, you can very easily dismiss as snake oil, because you're just gonna be like, like, it just didn't fucking work. It didn't move the needle for me. And some other ones, they kind of get sold as like a miracle drug. Like Epidolon literally gets sold as a longevity thing, but the evidence doesn't support that. Like, it's a little bit different. Like, when we get into the science, is actually a little bit more complicated than that. So what you have to understand is there is a way to judge the field that I've created. And I think that if you absorb the system that I'm giving to you, you're not going to be deceived by using things that have no evidence. We're going to get to a problem that I uncovered that is actually not even in the academic literature, because they don't deal with the claims that are made by manufacturers, but we do, because we're in the front line of like what's actually acting, what we're actually like taking. We're literally experiments, like walking around in our own bodies, right? So we have here's the system that I use is 4 tiers, and the single principle under all of these is that quality beats quantity, right? So paper count is not the right gate. Like, a lot of people, I see them talking about, like, look how many papers we have for BPC 157. It's like, but paper count doesn't fucking matter. We just last year and this year had 2 studies now comparing, dealing with BPC 157, which is basically just a comparison of the route of use, right? So paper count is going to be the wrong one. You can have one rigorous independent review, and that's going to outweigh a dozen of group reports, right? And we have like 4 independent international research groups using their own methodology and their own replication methods, all like, that's going to beat a fuck ton of studies that came out of like Cavance's lab alone. That's just how broader scientific literature works. So the top tier is what I call a robust tier. To get my approval to be in a robust tier, there needs to be a real body of published work. There needs to be independent replication across multiple continents, meaning separate research groups in different countries who don't talk to each other, but got the same fucking answer when they read the studies and when they ran the studies. And the strongest reading of all of that is going to come out positive, right? So that's a very high bar. In this entire field of 53 bioregulators, there's exactly one that clears that bar, and that's Epidolon. That's the one that I want to talk to the most. The Epidolon basically has 22 index papers, which isn't the highest count. Prostaglandin has significantly more. But what sets it apart is that you've got the Brunel University in the UK, you have the Jeonseong National University of Korea, you have the Chinese Academy, like I covered, you have the Chiara Pescara Institute in Italy. Like, you have 4 independent groups, 4 independent countries, and all in the 3 continents. Like, they're all 2 continents. Sorry, these are all confirming basically the core biology of how these peptides work. So one thing you have to understand about bioregulators and peptides in general is that there's a lot of extrapolation, right? You understand one mechanism, and we are working under the assumption that every other bioregulator works the same. But because studies are very expensive, you need a lot of very specific material for reading genetic information and stuff. It's not something that just comes out very fast, but the field is growing extremely fast. As recent as 2025, the Brunel group ran a replication study of the telomere lengthening claim, which we'll get to what that means, and they reaffirmed that. So like when four groups have like no reason to agree with one another and like they all end in the exact same place, that's as close to arriving to truth as it gets. And a multi-continent independence is the whole reason that Epidolon stands there. So there's an objection here, right? Here's the framework, right? That like surely like the one that has the most papers is going to be the one that's most relevant, right? So there's a brain compound, cortexin, that by raw paper count it actually beats Epidolon. So why the fuck do I not consider a cortexin a actual like useful compound to be in a robust tier? Well, Epidolon has like 30 papers plus pharmaceutical approval plus independent replication, right? Plus a bunch of other shit, but cortexin has replication, partial replication. It has pharmaceutical approval as well, so it's a real medication. And it also is the only compound that has made it into the Cochrane review that we talked about. So that's the gold standard of independent appraisal. It's a group that has absolutely no dog in the fight. So if I was just counting paper count alone and paper titles or just like reading the abstracts, cortexin would be robust. And when I started studying, I labeled cortexin as robust. So, but all of the breadth is still traces back to one originating program. And the single highest quality independent research that looked at the Cochrane review, it read very cautiously across just one population group. So it sits at a moderate tier. That's what the next tier is at, right? So you should never ask like how many studies it has. You should always ask like, okay, like how many studies it has, but who actually did these studies? Did any like independent country get the same results? Like a stack of 30 papers just tells you that one lab is like really fucking busy. Like 5 papers from separate groups, that tells you that the effect is actually real. So that distinction is just the most useful tool. Then we get to the other tier, which is the tier that has preliminary evidence. We have about 15 compounds in that tier. In the moderate tier, we have 15 compounds. So we have 31 bioregulators that are very, very, very good, right? So there's very good, solid evidence. 22 remaining bioregulators, they have almost no evidence. Like some of them don't even have fucking papers. So when we're saying like bioregulators don't have any evidence or like bioregulators are all the same and stuff like that, it's like, no, like we have something that literally is like Epidolon is fucking incredible. It has been replicated across continents. And then we have something like Ovogen that has literally no fucking papers, plus some huge problems that I want to get into later. So to talk about like the one that I like the most here, I think it would be Epidolon, right? So I actually wanted to get into like some objections that people have to like these peptides before. Are you okay if I just cover like some objections?
Yeah,
that people
totally.
Because it's going to be like most applicable to us on like how we understand these things, right? So like when people say we already covered this, so I don't want to get really deep, but I didn't feel anything, so therefore it's a waste of money. I get this in my comment section all the time. Like I took this bioregulator, doesn't do shit. Stop talking about this stuff, Nathan. You're fucking retarded. I don't know if I can say that word here. I'm sorry, but I literally am retarded. I am autistic, and I have the diagnosis from 2 separate countries, so I can use the word. I get a pass here. So these peptides, they basically just nudge your cell's own gene expression program, which is just to say they're whispering instructions to the part of the cells that are going to decide which genes get switched on and off, and then they do it very, very slowly, very, very quietly. So it's a hormone is like you just throw a fucking log in the fire and you can feel the heat. A bioregulator is the thermostat. It's restorative and it works on a time scale. It literally can give you like, hey, it's going to take like 6 months for you to start seeing the effect. There's no buzz to feel. There's nothing happen because there's nothing crudely enough being registered for you to get a sensation. The mechanism is very quiet. So what I tell people like what to do instead of feeling, measure this shit. There's literally like several bioregulators that we have like specific results that you can see in like HbA1c, you can see in cognitive scores, but like when people take cognitive compounds, how many people do you know who are actually doing like cognitive tests? Like I make my cognitive clients take cognitive tests because I want to measure whether the shit is improving or not, but most people don't. So you're using the wrong measurement tool, which is why you say that these things don't work. So I'm watching for actual markers, right? I'm watching for CRP, I'm watching for HOMA IR, I'm watching for all of these things. That is the stuff that's going to give you all of the stuff that you really need. Now we also have a borderline geographic objection, right? Which I just call it the racism objection, and it's usually like, well, it's all Russian, so it's all just propaganda, right? And I understand that critique, but like start with like Cochrane, right? Because it's literally the toughest, most independent like evidence type that exists. So having like a Cochrane review, it's going to be like the toughest reviewers in the world analyzing every single claim that you've made and seeing if that shit is actually true. So the review actually flags certain things that are worth considering. When it was reviewing Cortexin, it found that like there was a mortality signal that was found in the Cortexin arm, but not in the placebo group. So like literally people died when they took Cortexin, but they didn't die when they took nothing. So they actually recommended that Cortexin no longer be studied whatsoever because you could lead that person to actually dying. Now, again, that's a completely different population. It's a completely different use case for like cognitive support, longevity, neuroprotection. Because it was used in stroke emergency patients. So there's like no way to control who's going to die or who's not going to die. They also they couldn't control for that, so it doesn't transfer to us. But there should be just like some understanding that the evidence is not read all the same, right? There's also a newer scale of work. There's a program called Cortex that basically enrolled almost 1,000 COVID patients in several different countries. And it ran through like 700 neurologists, and it basically started mapping like all of this type of shit together to like give you like an understanding of how this thing actually works. So to circle back to Epidolon, because that's the clinical, like the cleanest answer to geographic complaint, like we have 4 countries in 2 different continents. So that's like total independence. So it's not just Russian propaganda. And again, if you understand the history of how these things were created, they obviously came out of Russia because they were created for Russian people, but we can benefit out of that. Now, a lot of people say that there's no mechanism to work with. There's a lot of mechanism. Like we can get really, really deep into the science, but I leave that reserved to the people who want that type of stuff. I know that a lot of people are not really interested in like this, hearing about Fedoreva in 2011 and how, that basically like mapped out different peptides and all this type of shit. So I'm not going to cover that specifically, but we have like, there's a tripeptide that gets sold for vascular work specifically. And we have molecular docking studies on it that it shows that it basically parks itself directly in the promoter region of a gene called MKI67. So it's a precise 4-letter sequence, CATC, and it's going to switch KI67, which is a marker that your body uses to tell your cells to multiply. So that's a peptide that's landing on a very specific gene on a named spot and is turning like a real named function. This is documented sequence-specific DNA chemistry that these peptides are reading epigenetic code and they're docking onto specific genes at specific addresses. Like you can argue about this how much as you want, but saying that there is no mechanism to prove these things is absolutely fucking false. We literally tag these guys with fluorescent labels and then we watch them under a microscope crawl all the way to the most inner part of the nucleus without having to interact with any receptors whatsoever. So there's no desensitization or anything like that. Now, the best objection that I've ever heard, I'm gonna save that for later, but there's like some specific things about these bioregulators that I think are very problematic, and I think people are getting scammed with a lot of bioregulators. But I want to end with that, and I'll start with that because it's an objection that only I found. So it's very original. I'm very proud of having found this shit, but it just made my head scratch when I found it. So Epidolon, right? Epidolon, in short, is going to be like the most like studied bioregulator that we have. And by the way, it's pronounced Epidolon, not Epitalon, okay? So the first thing that we have is telomerase activation through HTERT regulation in normal cells with sequence-specific DNA binding that basically discriminate between methylated and unmethylated forms of cytosines, and then have some specific binding histones like H13 and H16, right? The most current replication that we have shows that Epidolon runs through dual mechanism, telomerase activation in normal cells, and recently we literally just found this out like a couple of years ago. It also has an alternate lengthening of telomeres in cancer cells. So we're going to get into like why it's not like important for cancer cells and stuff like that. But like in general, like it's a very, very strong case. We have like 22 papers for it. So if you take a compound out of this entire field and you shine the brightest light on it, I want it to be epidolon because it's the one that I have most confidence on. It's the one that I walk through the most. The molecule itself is very tiny. It's alanine, glutamate, aspartate, and glycine, right? Which is it's just AEDG. That's the sequence. That's the whole molecule. Just 4 fucking binding blocks, right? What it does is very fucking interesting. So epidolon switches telomerase back on by turning up a gene called HTRT. So what does that mean? Because telomeres are the protective caps at the end of your chromosome, so like the light, tiny little like plastic tips at the end of your shoelaces that are going to stop your shoelaces from fraying. Every single time a cell divides, those caps get shorter, shorter, shorter. Once they get short enough, the cells stop dividing entirely, and then it retires. So telomerase is the enzyme that's going to rebuild those caps, and most of your adult cells are going to quit switching off. So what epidolon does is that it reaches into the cell, it flips that switch back on, and then the cells start rebuilding their own caps. So like in the dish-treated cells, they actually went past their division number. So there's a set number of times that a cell can replicate itself. Once it reaches that number, it dies. Epidolon was able to extend that up to like 7-fold. So you got like 70 times more replication. You literally extended the lifespan of this. So it's the work that I mentioned of like Fedoriev in 2011. It showed that like this peptide reads a sequence and then it lands on the specific letter of your DNA that has a specific tag called methylation. We're probably familiar with methylation. It's just the cell's like way of marking a gene that is locked or unlocked. So the peptide is acting like a reader of the code itself, right? So it found that like it binds to some specific protein spools in the nucleus, which are called the histones, and then it switches those genes that are tied to growing new brain cells. So picture like you should hold this like it's not a supplement that floats around like hoping that's going to bump into something fucking useful. It's actually a very, very particular sequence. So in the animal data that we have, it's super fucking strong. It basically showed that it can extend lifespan up to 40 times in the studies that we have, which is insane. There's nothing else that does that. Now, the human data needs a little bit more caution here, right? There's a 260 plus patient that followed them over across like 6 to 8 years. This is like the most important human data, but it didn't use epidolon. It used epithalamine, which is the natural preparation, right? The thing is like mortality fell roughly by 1 point some fold. I don't remember off the top of my head. And then they also paired it with thymolin. And then you got a 4.1 reduction in death rates. Like that is insane. Like that's literally halving the mortality rates of those subjects. So that is the largest, longest human data set on the entire field of bioregulators, and it's built on the cousin of epidolon, which is epithalamine, right? There's also like some confirmation in people with which they measured sulfaxyl melatonin, right? It also was able to like show that that epidolon increases, like it regulates your circadian rhythm. So it's very useful for that. It's very, very multi-use. Now, there is a question about the big C word that is not the virus. Is that thing that everybody is scared? Oh, it raises VGF, so like it raises BDNF, so it's going to cause that thing to happen, right? And rightly so. You should be acting these things because if you're switching telomeres, like you have to ask whether you are also feeding those cells because that disease relies on telomeres becoming pretty much immortal. So if you are trying to extend telomere length, it's like, oh shit, like wouldn't this like affect like those specific cells? So in 2025, there's a university that did a replication that adding a little bit of a twist. So what they realize is that in normal healthy cells, they do the lengthening through the normal telomeres lengthening route, the route that you actually want. But in the C cells, it doesn't switch telomerase on. It's that selective. So those cells are actually, they run through an alternative route called ALT, alternative lengthening of telomeres. And the proposed theory that they have is that, well, this is going to also suppress those C cells through that histone H1 binding that I mentioned. So the same molecule literally behaves differently depending on which environment is found in. So the lengthening caps on your healthy cells, they do so without lighting up the engines on your C cells. So like even people who are C cell positive, there's no need to worry. Like as far as I understand the evidence, I still keep the standard caution, right? If you are dealing with that, don't take any peptides whatsoever. But practically, it's something that's very useful. The other one that I really, really like is cortexin. So cortexin is going to be the second like most rigorous peptide that we have in this world. It works through the inhibition of a caspase in the brain called caspase-8. So basically, you have two ways that the cells can command suicide. So one path is going to start from a signal on the outside of the cell, and it's going to start the other one on the signal on the inside of the cell. But they eventually trigger like a demolition crew that just take all the cells apart. Caspase-8 is going to be the trigger on the outside of the cell. And what this has been demonstrated through the studies of cortexin is that it basically shuts down that specific trigger alone inside of the cell and then leaves the demolition crew alone, right? Which it's basically like it's a precise interruption of cell death. That's what it does. So they showed this in a neuron specific case. There's some very like good data coming out of it, but they're like the two most recent studies that they found was like there's no difference in like how you administer these compounds. You literally can measure cortexin's effect in HbA1c, which is fucking incredible, right? It's one of the few things that we can actually measure in bloodstream. It's just these things like they work in very, very specific forms. They tag to very specific parts of your body, and they basically make your body work the way that it used to when you were younger. That's basically how they work. That's the essential of it. But the two ones that have the most evidence are going to be epidolon and cortexin by far. The applicability for our population is insane. Just think about all of the neuroinflammation that you get out of PED courses. Dude, like you can deal with that through like thymus bioregulators. You can deal with that with cortexin, right? Just think about like someone who's going through prep and their brain is literally not fucking working, regardless of which peptides you take and which nootropics you take. Well, what if you could change the environment itself, change the soil so that when you plant the seeds of those peptides and the nasal sprays and all of this stuff, now it's operating in a different form. So you can literally think in terms of like, oh, next year I want to be cognitively sharp as fuck. Well, cortexin would be very useful. And you can start thinking about like, okay, like should I just run cortexin? No, I actually propose that you run multiple bioregulators at once because our systems are all interconnected. So you could run like a vaso bioregulator to be able to also like interact with the function of like they're moving through your bloodstream exactly and stuff like that. But that's getting a little bit off topic here. In general, those are the two most rigorous bioregulators that we have, and we have an absolute retarded fuck ton of bioregulators that literally have absolutely no fucking evidence that they work whatsoever. That's just the sad reality of it. But does that answer the question? Because I feel like I didn't actually answer the question here.
Hey. I hate commercials too, but bear with me for like 10 seconds here. If you want to support the podcast, check out the DDT Method School Group. Only $10 per month, and there's over 100 videos deep diving on all of your favorite peptides, PEDs, and performance-enhancing protocols. Not to mention tons of training and nutrition info, plus me and my team are in there answering all of your questions. It's amazing. Check it out. Link below. I want to dive a little bit more into epidolon before we move on to some other ones. And I want to ask you specifically about its effects on the pineal gland and its effects on circadian rhythm, because that's something that, if it's as applicable as people discuss within that context, it's something that can directly benefit a lot of people in our space of just performance enhancement. But is that something that's overstated, or is it something that's understated?
What do you mean?
So there's a lot of discussion online right now about epidolon and pinalion specifically, about regulating circadian rhythm through influence on the pineal gland. Is there anything in the research that substantiates any of that, or is that just online bro talk?
No, that there's a lot of stuff with that. Like there's literally a lot. Like epidolon affects a lot of systems. So it affects telomerase, which is the one that I covered, but it also affects neurogenesis. It affects and it's also an antioxidant, and like it's also affecting circadian regulation as well. So there's a lot of things that it does. So like someone who's like fucking 35 years old, who's running epidolon, they're getting telomerase, antioxidant, and circadian mechanisms that are going to be influencing that person, right? So it's not just one thing. So in terms of like epidolon, like use for our population, right? Let's talk about PD users specifically after I take a sip of an energy drink here.
Cheers.
So let's talk like longevity and lifespan, right? This is the first one that you're going to see that. This is like the beta case. Like epidolon is going to be a foundational work for all of that because it's literally the best run compound for that. So think of that person, you're going to get the telomerase, you're going to get antioxidant and circadian effects. So they're going to address all of the hallmarks of aging at once. This is the most like practical use for Epidolon. The second most practical use of Epidolon is going to be sleep and circadian regulation. This is very, very proved. There's a study in Advanced Gerontology. There's a paper in 2020 that you can read. Basically, Epidolon normalizes circadian clock gene expression, and it also restores melatonin rhythm in older subjects who had reduced pineal function. So we know for a fact, this is proven beyond reasonable doubt, that pineal function actually changes as you age, and your circadian rhythm changes. This is why you see like older people going to sleep super early. They have different like eating patterns, their hormones behave differently. It's all going back to circadian rhythm. So like for our people who are not like, geriatric patients, what is the use of it? Well, just think of like the sleep architecture, how it gets disrupted from your fucking hard training, from cycling PEDs, from stress. So this is going to be the one use for Epidolon that's going to have the most clear subjective benefit that you would notice. Your sleep depth returns significantly more than the SIP. The SIP is very poorly characterized. I only use it as a supportive layer, but the time to fall asleep also shortens with Epidolon. Your waking quality improves. The catch is that you see that with people that have pineal dysfunction. So if you are younger and you already have good sleep, you're not going to notice anything. This is something that you see across every bioregulator. The older the person are, the more fucked up you are, your genes are going to be less readable. Like that is why you're fucked up. So if you put that in a young person, the genes are open. Like you're already operating as best as you can. So there's no other benefit that's going to come out of that. So Epidolon just able to normalize the circadian clock in a way that like a lot of other things don't do. So Epidolon also stacks very, very well with cortexin, which is that brain compound that I mentioned. And I use it in a what's called the brain and cognition stack. So they engage at like different but complementary mechanisms. So Epidolon is going to work at the upstream epigenetic and the circadian level, and then cortexin is going to work on the cortical neuronal level. So that combination is something that's like really, really fucking cool. But you can't expect these compounds to substitute like a fucking like sleep medication or something like that. They're very, very powerful. Like I've told this story before, but for myself, DSIP plus Epidolon took me off of benzos, and I've been taking benzos since I was a teenager. Like that's non-normal. Like that's a very, very useful case. But again, you have to remember how to measure these things, right? So you don't just like stack these things and hope that they work. You have to do the actual work of like, protecting your sleep times and making sure that you're getting bright light exposure first thing in the morning within 15 to 30 minutes of waking up for about 15 minutes. If you don't have the opportunity to get sunlight exposure, just go to Amazon, look up Happy Light, 10,000 lumens, just blast that shit in your face. I do that when I'm injecting every morning, when I'm like putting my dog in and all of this type of stuff. Put in your blue light glasses and all these things, because these things are just nudging your system in the right direction. They're not like actually doing the full work for you. So epithalamin is going to be that like the Cytomax that's going to be the natural form. It's going to work on the pineal. It's going to work on the circadian. It's going to work on the longevity angle, which is the same shit like Epidolon does. Pinealon is actually going to protect the brain cells when they're under load. So pinealon is not as applicable for the case of sleep. Even though it has the name pineal, it's not a pineal peptide. Cortigen actually like is going to work on like a lot of like things that you're not expecting, like nerve repair and stuff, and a bunch of other things. But in general, like there's I think there's a very clear rationale for using Epidolon for one of the main players in restoring your sleep function. So I run Epidolon at a course of 10 milligrams per day for 10 to 20 days. Every injectable bioregulator runs a course of 10 to 20 days at a specific milligram range or microgram range. And then the A series is going to run as an oral amount. You have to take them for longer, for 30 to 60 days. And you're going to let about 3 to 6 months in between these things, because now you're giving your system a chance to adapt, which is the same logic that I use for MOTS-C. I'm not a fan of using MOTS-C every single day. I prefer to use MOTS-C as a signal because it already is a relaying signal. So you send a signal, you let the body adapt. You send a signal, and with every adaptation, it basically like drops just a little bit less, and until it gets to the point that it's like completely upregulated and is just operating at the level that you actually want. But they're like very good rationale for this for us. It's the pineal melatonin circadian research, like it's It comes from the Chiara Pescara Institute in Italy. So there are actual papers that are not just coming out of Kaminski's Institute. This is a paper that came out in 2025 on AEDG, if I'm not mistaken. So there's very good rationale there.
And this makes it all so applicable, not just to our community, but really all communities, because you're changing these operating systems, or should I say, making them work as they should. And then that can cascade into whatever benefit you're after, be it longevity, performance, or anything in between, which is really kind of the purpose of this podcast. It's just this podcast in general, the whole platform is bridging that gap between health and longevity and performance, and really showing everybody how they go hand in hand. And another
Correct.
topic that touches on that tremendously are these vascular bioregulators and these cardiovascular bioregulators, because we have things you mentioned earlier, just touched on things like enhancing the endothelial lining within blood vessels. Now, that obviously plays a massive role in health and longevity, but that even plays a role for nitric oxide production and release. And playing into that role, that's enhancing performance, not directly in terms of you take something and all of a sudden you get a massive pump from that, but the integrity of the system overall for blood flow and circulation will play a direct role. Somebody that has that entire system optimized is going to get better pumps in the gym. They're going to have better endurance. They're going to encounter situations where they have better nutrient delivery than other people. And it's just checking all these boxes to not only make them more healthy and less prone to cardiovascular damage over time, but it's going to make them perform better and in turn look better, be leaner, be bigger, be stronger than somebody that has a less than optimized system. Now, again, I'm not trying to oversell these things, but it plays into that.
No, it's huge. Tom Schuster actually took Vesogen. He had a clot that basically, if he had gone to the hospital just a few days later, he would have died. And he ran Vesogen, and he literally could see the vessels being created. So like we know that like BPC 157, it works through nitric oxide, it works through growth receptor activation, and it works through the stimulation of vascular endothelial growth factor, right? So it's a tissue repair signal. GHK copper also, right? It's going to work through skin remodeling and stuff like that because of like the copper mediation and follicle activity and wound healing, but it also has some like vascular signaling on its own, right? But in like the vascular bioregulators that we have, the most interesting one is called Vesogen. So Vesogen is one of those like tiny peptides that's able to like work through your through oral route. It's for the blood vessel specifically. So like the way that I pair them, I run a cardiovascular metabolic axis block every year. So I have 4 blocks. I teach people how to run and periodize these things on your own based on like your risk profile as well as your age. So that's important. You basically should have different types of protocols stratified by age group, because in your 20s you need different things than you need when you're 60. So you're supporting different systems. There's no reason to support your retina when you're 20, but there is a good reason to support your retina when you're 60, right? So if you get like Vesogen, it's going to work on your blood vessels. You could pair that with the Livogen, which is going to work on your liver. You can pair that with Pancreagen, which is going to work on your pancreas, right? So Vesogen, in the studies that we have, it's an atherosclerotic like vessel linings. It basically pull a lot of like overactive constriction. That signal is called endothelin 1. It basically pulled that back to normal. So it restored a communication between the cells in your endothelial tissue. And it raised SIRT1, which everyone is familiar with, which is basically a repair enzyme, right? Which is, dude, it's fucking incredible because we have literally nothing that is able to do that. So the Vesogen just works in the vessel specifically. It's able to, support itself with other bioregulators as well, and create like a comprehensive stack where you're like attaching like every single system on its own. The only note that I would add here is that like the data that we have for vascular is actually coming from Vesogen, not from Ventfort. Ventfort has no papers whatsoever. So if you see it on a Chinese, like WhatsApp page or some shit, Ventfort, it's useless. There's no fucking evidence of that. Plus, it's there. That signal of Ventfort is literally marketed as 4 different other bioregulators. So like one of them says that it targets this tissue, one of them targets the other tissue and all this stuff. So it's like, okay, we literally just fucking marketing. You're paying 4 times for the same molecule. It's a fucking like waste of money. But for our population, man, like, dude, just think about like the effect that we have on our blood vessels, because like, holy shit, like the vascular system takes so much of a hit from PD use. The kidneys take as much of a hit as well. Like the liver, the gut, like all of these systems are taking so much of a hit. But you have to support these things over the long course. So like I run myself 4 courses of bioregulators every single year. Every single year I run 4 courses of bioregulators. They're very specific. I can tell you what they are. But in general, like find exactly what you need the most, which like for PD users is going to be like all of the systems that we take prophylactics for, route a bioregulator back to that and create a block where you run like related systems once, and then you give a 3-month break, relay other systems, taking a 3-month break, relay other systems, take a 3-month break. And it depends. Like there's other ways to pair them. I have certain people that are taking on the first 10 days of the month, every single month, because they need a lot of support. And we know that the doses and the protocol basically changes based on how based on like how damaged your system is. So like if I'm dealing with someone, I have a client who's a treatment resistant anhedonian, we're restoring his dopamine and serotonergic function. Like you need way more support than someone who just, like, oh, I just get some neuroinflammation because I run tren all the time. Just fucking take the tren off. Like the bioregulator is not going to be able to compete with that, So that's in general like how I think about like pairing all of these things together. But you should know that like when you're running these peptides, you have to look at the molecule itself, because like Vesogen, Nephrogen, Myogen, Androgen, like Vesogen is the same thing as all of these other 4 that I just said. So you need to know that you're buying literally the same molecule. So you can think that you're supporting the kidney and you're supporting, the cardiac tissue and all of these things, but no, you're just taking a fucking vessel one, right? So that's the shared sequence problem, which is the problem that I uncovered with bioregulators, but not to get down that rabbit hole here. But yeah, that's a clear example here.
Makes perfect sense.
Just to like wrap up on Vesogen real quick. Vesogen is it has a very specific proposed mechanism. All of these peptides do. They are not working at random. KED, which is Vesogen, the studies that we have, it shows that it upregulates SIRT1. This has been proven. This is not like some forum guy saying that like, oh, if you extrapolate the evidence from mice, this is what it does. It literally normalizes endothelin 1. It acts directly in the vascular endothelium tissue itself, and it restores what it's called connexin communication in atherosclerotic vessels. So it docks into that molecule that I mentioned, MKI67, and it's a promoter of what it's called CAT-TC, which is a sequence that it stimulates a lot of endothelial proliferation. So we have a study that came out about 10 years ago that showed the endothelium, the SIRT1, and the connexin effects. We have the molecular docking work that was proven to work. We have lower limb chronic arterial insufficiency studies with 41 patients. We have 9 papers on this that are very, very good. The molecular docking mechanism is still unreplicated, but it's very, very strong. So it's like it's literally the best vascular endothelium case with strong molecular mechanism, but I have moderate confidence on it because it has not been replicated outside of Russia. But there's no other bioregulator that acts in blood vessels in this way. But like anything that's able to stop blood clots, like that's going to be something that I'm interested in, because we take nattokinase, we take IP6, we take baby aspirin, and all of these things. Like it's very, very important that you're actually supporting the systems that are going to take the most hit. And I understand, guys, like if you're listening all the way to here, a lot of this stuff sounds like very wishy-washy and boring, but like, dude, there's nothing else in our arsenal, in our toolkit, that can restore function so that you don't have to depend on taking high dose of medication. Like for myself, I was able to reduce my lisinopril dose in half by running these compounds. Like that is a very, very measurable effect. I didn't change anything on my diet. I didn't change anything with regards to body fat or regards to body composition or anything like that. Literally, the only thing that I have is just the bioregulator itself doing the heavy lifting. With Epidolon, it was just Epidolon and DSIP, right? That was able to restore my circadian rhythm very, very, very well. Now, to be fair, I'm having sleep issues right now. So how come, if it took me out of benzos, how come it can't help me anymore? Well, again, like it can't compete against like when you're having like fucking 2 grams of gear in your systems and you're running like stimulants out the wazoo and like all of the fucking like fat burners under the sun. It's not going to be able to compete with that, but it's able to restore your function a little bit more to what it used to be when you were younger, which is how you used to function at your peak. Like there's once you get to like 20 years old, that is the peak of your brain development. Your cognitive decline starts in your 20. It doesn't start in your 60s. Like I said, immune dysregulation starts when you're 12 years old. It doesn't start when you're 60. All of these things you have to think ahead of the curve. Why? Because that's going to allow you to run gear for longer. Like that's just the most important fucking thing. If you tell me that there's something that's going to allow me to spend less money on prophylactics and be able to run more gear for longer at a healthier pace, I'm fucking all in, you know?
So there's so many different ways we can branch the effects of these because again, we're changing the way that different systems work in the body, but for the better. Again, I'm going to use the word optimizing 1,000 times this episode, not just because you're optimal, Nathan, but because it really applies. That if we optimize different organ systems, if we're doing it for the right way with the understanding of what happens when you do that, this can be used to target even more different serious conditions or just chronic conditions or just annoying conditions that people are dealing with. Like I'm thinking about things like Livogen and optimizing liver, and somebody listening to this might look at that as something like, oh, that way, if I did damage to my liver from oral steroid abuse or whatever it might be. And I'm looking at it from, well, geez, this might be an incredibly upstream, but a still valid way to address things like problems in hydroxylation pathways from a liver standpoint, and just different ways to address different situations. We have bioregulators that cascade into, I know, things like lung health specifically. I don't know the validity of such, but I know that they're out there and they're being discussed in different performance circles. And we have all of these different ways to address things either directly or indirectly, as long as you understand, which is where your bioregulator course is going to come in and play such a crucial role in helping people to understand these things. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't want to get into the exact hows and whys of your particular bioregulator courses that you run throughout the year, because I do think somebody should get into your group and actually do the deep dive in that and actually invest a little bit in the deep knowledge of it, not just listen and then copy. But what are the general approaches you have to these courses? Like what 4 courses do you do per year? Maybe not all the specific drugs, but for what purposes, and why did you select those purposes?
Okay, so basically I run, like I can give you the exact rotation that I run. I'm going to give you the principle that I use here for these. So the first principle that I use whenever you're thinking about bioregulators and stacking bioregulators is that you should pair related systems together. That's a very small default. There's no risk in doing that. In a lot of like peptide and drug use, the smartest move is to add like one thing at a time. So that caution exists because those interventions, they move numbers very, very rapidly, and they can interact in ways that you need to see very rapidly, right? But bioregulators, they're different. In most cases, they have no measurable effect in standard labs, right? They work very slow, and they have a wide safety margin. So pairing compounds is the first thing that you should do whenever you're thinking about bioregulators. The second principle that you should think in mind, that you should keep in mind whenever you're thinking about bioregulators, is that everything is cycled, nothing is run year round. I literally know of a very famous, well, not scholar, a very famous person in our field that says that to run Epidolon year round. There's no reason to run Epidolon year round. It's just a waste of money. There's no proven mechanism that works. That's just extrapolating from a data that doesn't exist. I literally serve it every single paper. So the rhythm that I use is basically 10 to 20 days. That comes out of the research, or 30 to 60 days based on the oral ones. The cycle length is going to follow the compound type. So the cytogens are going to run in 10 to 20 day blocks, and then the cytomax are 30 to 60 days. So with these three rules in hand, this is basically what I run. So in the first quarter of the year, like winter to early spring, I do the foundational block. So this is going to be the one that I would keep if you could only keep one block. If you're only going to do one and you're a PED user, this is the one that's most relevant to everyone, like not even just PED users, regardless of your age, regardless of your goal. I also have some principles based on like specific ages that I touch on. And I also give case studies of like real clients that I went through, like with their specific blood markers and how the improvements that we've seen and stuff like that, and how you can measure these things. So for this one here, the pairing is going to be Epidolon plus thymolin. Now you talk about pineolon, but we actually have studies that compared Epidolon versus Epidolon and thymolin, and we saw that like improved 4.1 score in longevity with running them together. The reason you run them together is because they cover 2 systems that the most directly set the trajectory of how you age. the circadian and the longevity machinery, and the immune system is going to be the other one. So the epithalamin survival data and the thymus peptide data that I covered before, these are very, very strong because they were paired. So on a supportive layer, I also am adding, this is where it gets cool, I'm adding 2 non-bioregulators to this. So I'm also adding thymosin alpha 1, and also, which basically acts in the same mechanism as thymolin, just a little bit differently. So it extends the immune reach, but it's not a replicating or duplicating that reach. You're going to need an NAD precursor to feed in that same like SIRT1 repair axis that epidolon is going to drive. So you can support that like by running these 4 compounds together. The second quarter of the year, late spring, early in the summer, I'm going to target the ones that are basically like hit the most whenever you're going enhance. So these are the liver, the vessels, and the pancreas. So the core is going to be the KD family. We're going to do Vesogen for the liver, for the vessels, Livogen for the liver, and Pancreagen for the pancreas. This is the most like clean pairing that you can run. Each one is going to run like at a pair, like as a specific block. They have very different doses. One of them is going to run 20 milligrams. The other one is going to run like fucking 200 micrograms and stuff like that. But it matters the most. This is the block that matters the most, pairing Livogen, Pancreagen, and Vesogen for people who are running a lot of like oral compounds, or people who have a lot of metabolic stress or vascular wear and tear from like a long enhanced career. You see blood pressures drifting up, lipids drifting, glucose control is slipping. And here is where I actually like to add a supportive layer for BPC 157 because of that vascular repair as well. So I use BPC 157 in the off period after the bioregulatory course. In the third quarter, like midsummer to like early fall, that's when I take care of my brain. This is also like when I work like very, very hard on this area. So the cortexin is going to be like the one that I lean the most. So I always teach people to pair the one that has the most evidence first, and then you can use supportive bioregulators later. So you're going to run cortexin as like 10 to 20 milligrams a day. It depends on like the level of intervention that you need. Cortexin actually saturates the antioxidant defenses at 10 milligrams. So you do not need 20 milligrams to get the full benefit out of it. So just don't waste your money, because like literally, like one of the things that I tell people is like, and just to get into like a side tangent here, but I've tested over 20 bioregulators in our field. I've got, I basically got all of them. I have it's something that I pride myself a lot on. I have all of the perfume vials. Every single drug that goes into my clients' bodies has gone through my body, and it has gone through Genoshik. Every single one. I do not work. The people who are working with these guys, they know. They just send you free products, and then they tell you, hey, here's your commission, promote our products. Nope. I want you to send me some free shit. I'm going to test it myself, and I'm going to send it for testing. And if it's good, I want to test endotoxin. I want HPLC. I want to test all the whole fucking thing. I put my real, actual personal money into this because it's very, very important, especially when you're dealing with things like the brain and the DNA. It's like, this is very careful. Of the 20 plus bioregulators that I tested from sources that are not like, they're like WhatsApp sources and like Chinese sources, email, Proton, all of this type of shit, they all had issues. The dosing wasn't right. They had endotoxins out the wazoo. They didn't have the compound that is said that it did. Like, it was just extremely problematic. So I actually partnered with BioLongevity Labs for the course, which I know you work with as well. They run sales throughout the entire year, like all the fucking time. Like right now, you can actually, like for Memorial Day, they had a 40% off, which then you stack like a code on top of it. Like my code is OptiLab, but like you can use any code. It stacks another 15% on top. You get like 65%, 55% discounts. These vials, they're going to last you for the rest of your life. So you can literally spend fucking $40 and you're literally going to have like cycles for the next like 5 years.
Hey, real quick, I just wanted to stop and say thank you guys so much for supporting the DDT Method podcast. The feedback has been spectacular, and people keep asking me, Drew, how can I help support you even more? Well, you don't have to just give me anything, but you can support me by joining the DDT Method School Group. It's only $10 per month, and in that group, there are over 80 video deep dives going into deep protocols on all of your favorite peptides, PEDs, performance-enhancing products, and everything you can ever imagine. Training, nutrition, and me and my whole team are in there answering your questions every single day, every single week, every single month, just for $10 per month. What are you waiting for? Check it out. Let me make a quick point on biolongevity, because somebody will throw a comment in here and I just want to address it directly. So
Okay.
I work with multiple different peptide companies. I do the same thing that you do when I'm approached by somebody. If I get a good feel for the person and the company, I'll say, all right, send me a few things. I'm going to arbitrarily send some of them in for testing. I'm going to use them all at some point over the course of the year. Once I can verify that this is good stuff, then I'm more comfortable starting to recommend stuff to my clients and content, et cetera, et cetera. And my deal breaker with everybody is I don't do anything exclusive because I don't want to be locked into one place. Some places are better at some things. Some places are better at other things. And over the time, I've established a relationship with those guys at BLL as well. The company is very polarizing because they're very passionate about what they talk about, and their prices are not the lowest outside of all the discounts and stuff that they run.
No, they're not. They're not.
And people will attack them for that. And it's always, why is the price here, whereas the price of XYZ places are so much cheaper? And they just try to label it as like blowing money and whatnot too. People are going to hate on this, but you guys know that I'm not a shill. Nathan's not a shill. And again, I work with
This is the first time in podcast history in all of my videos that I'm mentioning a code. Like,
I've never done it either.
I've never took out a paycheck. I'm pretty sure I could take out a paycheck for like a lot of these, but I took a paycheck from one company and I used it to pay for these testing. Like, if I remember correctly, because I tested like 20 fucking peptides, like the testing for like just one of them, I just pulled up fucking a Genoshik. A Cardilax analysis is $450 fucking dollars.
Mm-hmm.
I tested 20 of these motherfuckers. If these guys are running tests on every batch, which I know they are for a fact, and they're getting these compounds from valid like manufacturers and stuff like that, like this costs a lot of money, guys. This is not cheap at all. And if you want to like go for something cheap, dude, if you're using like Nutri-Cost supplements and stuff, I don't give a shit. But when it comes to like injecting and stuff like that in your body, I do care a lot. Now, I'm not saying like don't use, these like shady sources and stuff like that. Do whatever the fuck you want with your body. I'm a libertarian when it comes to that. But for bioregulators specifically, this is not like, again, it's not me being a chill. I tested over 20 of them. I literally spend over like 10 grand on this shit, testing stuff for my clients. All of them had problems. I would not be telling you to spend more money if it wasn't necessary. My clients know, like whenever I send them a list and stuff like that, Bioregulators is the only one that I tell, like, you got to get it from BioLongevity Labs. There's no other place. And I was recommending BioLongevity Labs before we partnered, to the point that like when I reached out for them, I said like, hey, I have a bioregulator course. There's no one that has a bioregulator course in fucking history. Like there just doesn't exist. I think it would be great to promote your products because I've been using it for a really long time. They were super kind. They showed me the testing that they do. They send me the COAs. Like they literally do all of the work for you. So man, like, unless you want to spend, $450 for your own certificate of analysis to then figure out that the kit that you bought was just filled with fucking endotoxins. I mean, why would you do that when you can just, dude, how much does this shit cost on BioLongevity Labs? This it's ridiculous. Yeah, dude, it's so fucking cheap. Looking at their, like, obviously, like the follistatin and the stuff that they're like, having literally groundbreaking stuff, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but because they're literally like creating these molecules on their own. But like, look at like the actual cost of bioregulators that they have, like Epidolon, Jesus Christ, like Livogen, it's $40. It's 20 milligrams. Livogen, you run like 10 milligrams a day for 10 days, a year. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, if you're running 10 milligrams a day for a year, like that's like 50, like that's $100 for a whole year's supply. Like, you don't need to go to like a gray area market to pay, $200 for a kit, because that a kit is going to literally last your entire life, but it's going to be shit. And you're going to have to put $450 to know whether you're injecting endotoxins in your body, which endotoxins are extremely bad. They literally downregulate your thyroid. This has been proven. They fuck up with every single one of your hormones. And then you have all of these like elevated CRPs. You have elevated IL-6. You have elevated IL-1 beta and all of these things. You have to spend money on supplements then to fix the problem that you created by just trying to save $50. That's fucking retarded. You spend so much more money, man. Just legitimately, like when it comes to bioregulators, it's BioLongevity Labs. There's no one else in the market that compares to them. I know that there's another group that is starting, that they want to work with me. They want me to be one of their sponsored athletes. I told them like, hey, for bioregulators, unless you guys have the 3 testing that I actually have like everyone I actually take, I can't promote that. So I want a high performance liquid chromatography, HPLC. I want a real certificate of purity. I want the bar to be like 98% or higher. I want batch traceability. I want the COA to be traced back to the specific number on the vial that they sent me. I want an established track record, right? Ideally, I want them to have a relationship with the supplier, right? This is the one that people don't really think about, but like BioLongevity Labs has a reputation. So, like a supplier with a wrong reputation, repeated clinical use, in accountability to people is a supplier that's going to run their product. Like they have a reason not to cut corners compared to like a fucking WhatsApp message group board that you have that is just like they can just disappear tomorrow and come back under a different fucking name. They just call
Exactly.
and then tomorrow they call Ching Chong and like fuck it, you don't know. It's like they're just fucking different like 50 different ones. They're all the same WhatsApp person, right? I don't think it's worth it. I think when it comes to bioregulators, man, just like if it doesn't have a COA, or if the COA doesn't show you the batch number, fucking run from it. If the prices are suspiciously low, run from it, because real synthesis of these compounds, real testing, cold chain handling, it costs a lot of money. When the price is like dramatically below everything else, somewhere in that chain, a step got skipped. There's no way to avoid that. Also, whenever you see like vague I literally have an entire lecture on bioregulators sourcing because of how important this is. I don't have that for peptides. I don't have that for PEDs. I don't even have that for supplements. Supplements, I even changed my mind. I don't think it's worth spending a lot of money to get like the best like brands and stuff like that. For bioregulators is really, really good. If I've seen people that just have like polypeptide complex. I'm sure you've seen like on Amazon these like GHK copper like peptides and stuff like that. Like it's not real GHK copper, guys. It's you're just getting like a fucking thing that looks like GHK that has maybe the same like amino acids attached to it, but it's not bound by the same proteins. Like, come on, just actually follow what is where the evidence leads. And you want batch traceability, you want the sequence flipping, right? A catalog that has like a bunch of different bioregulators that overlap with one another in the letter specific sequence is problematic. BioLongevity doesn't have that. Like there's nothing else that I can say, but like if this hasn't convinced you to like literally spend your money in the wisest way possible, I don't know what can convince you. But like literally something that you're gonna spend fucking $50 and then run that for the rest of your fucking life, man. Like stop being a cheap ass. Like bodybuilding is not a cheap sport. Don't pretend that it is. I was a competitive shooter myself. Competitive shooting was costing me about like 20 grand to 30 grand a year, like with the traveling and all this stuff. I wish bodybuilding only cost me 20 grand a year, because just out of supplements is like $700. I'm not counting peptides. I'm not counting like all of the drugs. I'm not counting like the mentorships and like coaching, food. Food is over $1,000 a month. Like $40, dude. Just fucking buy the thing. And then just use the codes of the people that you want to support. The people who have done the work for you. The people who, like myself, literally spend 10 grand of their own pocketed money. While I'm fucking drowning in debt, I did that for my clients because I really, really believe in this shit. So just I'm trying to speak from the heart here. I already like told about the science here, but just really don't waste your fucking money when it comes to this type of shit.
You're not going to change your biology on a profound level cheap outside of the foundationals that are provided by nature. I can't even say food, because food's expensive to get good quality food too. And I'm so glad that conversation branched off in that direction, because we went into an entire invest in yourself and not specifically a biolongevity type discussion. But the main point of that I do want to circle back to really quickly is, hey, I know 10 companies that are super well tested, have high quality products, and are great across the board. This isn't the episode where Drew just talks about all of his personal sources. You guys might not have that information that I do, so stick with the ones that are very apparent, that you know are tested and are doing good business and are doing a lot of business, which is where stuff like BioLongevity comes into play. No, I'm not shilling the company. Yes, I'm friends with the guys. Yes, I have a coupon code. No, I don't think I've ever posted my coupon code. I'm the one that brought up BioLongevity being a great company specifically. And guess what? You're watching my podcast. Fuck my coupon code. Don't use it. Use Nathan's. I get no money for bringing the entire thing up. There you go. I'm just being fucking honest about the way things work. And if it was another company that had premium quality products with a decent price tag on it, then I'd be talking about them. But the point is, stop shitting on places because they're expensive, because expensive usually just means they're doing good business, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the background that costs them money that they have to make up and make margins for. Jay Campbell, and this is not a Jay Campbell podcast, and a lot of people get angry with Jay for whatever reason. Jay Campbell is not sitting on a throne of your money, just counting it and laughing at you. He's very passionate about what he does. He has a popular business. Just shooting this down before the comment section goes nuts on a topic that we're not even fucking talking about. Go to reputable companies. Sometimes they cost more money. So now I'm picturing Jay's on a big mountain of money, just laughing at all of us. And
yeah, no, they think that that's happening with us too, and it's interesting because like when you join, just to give you guys some background knowledge here, when you join a lot of these companies, you can literally see who are the people making the most money. And like you can literally see like a chart of like who are the number one people in the industry, like making the most money and this type of shit. Like we are not these people. Like I don't even tell. I don't have like you join to become a client for me. Like you join my community. There is no like here are discount codes for like everybody and stuff like that. I'm thinking about doing that because I want people to get from approved vendors, and also just like I'm doing the actual fucking work because I'm testing this shit. So if I pay $450, I like to get something tested for you, like sure, I want to be reimbursed for that. So I also don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think there's a lot of like misinformation when it comes to like how these things are made. Like drugs cost millions of dollars to be developed. They spend a fuck ton of money to develop their follistatin inhibitor. Like they being completely transparent, I'm gonna run FLGR 242. They sent me a couple of vials like to test it out. I told them, FYI, I have no filter. If this shit is garbage and I don't notice anything, I'm going to blast that all over the world because you guys are charging a lot of money for it. You know what they did? They sent me more vials. You know, like who else does that on a vial that costs like that much money? Who is willing to put their money where their fucking mouth is like that? I don't know a lot of other companies. As a matter of fact, I've worked with a company. Okay, I'm going to take this opportunity here, and you can clip this out if you want, but I'm going to take this opportunity here. I've worked with a company. It's a very, very famous company. They are blue. They are known by the letters MA. If you can put things together, it's not a master's of arts, okay? They owe me so much money. They ignore all of my emails. I know a lot of other people that are in the same situation that they owe thousands of dollars to. I have never had an issue with BioLongevity Labs. Again, this is not a chill or anything like that. They've done everything right by me. I literally got a package. You know, when you get a package, your good practice is for you to record yourself opening the package so that they can see that it was sealed. And it's like, really, you didn't receive what it was there. They literally just asked me like, hey, like, what did you get? I only got one. I was supposed to get 6. Cool. We're sending it to you. Like, no questions asked. No other company is going to do that. And a lot of these other companies, they are literally fucking us. Like the people who are testing their products, the people who are promoting their products and stuff like that, they're ignoring us. They're not good. Like, I can't say like enough good things about them. Regardless of what you think about them, guys, you got to understand it's a business. You got to do marketing. You have overhead costs. You have a website. You have developers. You have like the scientists themselves. You have testing. Like all of this shit is going to cost money. And what I'm buying with this when I'm deciding to work with a company like that, because believe me, I have access to every fucking Chinese person on earth. Like I can get whatever the fuck I want delivered to me like in a matter of days. Right? They said it's not a problem. I'm choosing to spend more money with them because I truly believe the product is good. But just to circle back here to the conversation, unless you have like something.
No, we just went on a massive tirade, but the guys will appreciate it. So I mean, we did some community service today. But back to your bioregulator.
Back to my bioregulator course, right? So I just covered basically the KED family, which is going to be Livogen, Vesogen, and Pancreagen. This is the one that's going to be the most applicable for us to run. So I run in a 10 to 20 day block together as a stack, and then I layer in BPC 157 as a supportive layer later on. Sometimes I also layer a GLP-1 agonist as part of someone's metabolic plan. So this is going to be like just lining up with that quarter to basically like take up some of the benefit that we're getting from Pancreagen, for instance, right? To just take a little bit of the burden off the pancreas. On the third quarter, midsummer to early fall, this is going to be the brain part that I was going to touch on before we went on this fucking huge rampage here. So there's 3 brain compounds that are going to be layered here specifically. This is the another like heavy stack. So cortexin is the one that I'm going to choose the most because of the evidence depth that we have, right? There's run it at 10 to 20 milligrams depending on your needs. Do not think that more is better when it comes to bioregulators. You're just going to be wasting your fucking money, okay? And again, remember, yes, it's $40 a vial, so that's $20 per day. For 10 days, for an entire fucking year. Stop being a cheap ass. I'm going to add pineal on here. This is going to be doing more of like the cellular protection level. It's a synthetic tripeptide that's going to be cutting the oxidative stress that we get in our neurons. And this is going to be dosed in micrograms. So like pineal on is even cheaper to run, around 100 micrograms twice daily for about 2 weeks. That's how much you run it for. I'm adding cortigen here to extend some of the brain work towards the cortical and the peripheral nerve regeneration side of things. Cortigen has been shown to literally restore nerves, which is super fucking hard to do. This is not something that you guys can just do easily with peptides and stuff like that. This is also going to be rolling in the low microgram synthetic rhythm that I just talked about. These three they're complementary. They're not redundant. That's just the point, right? You do not stack redundant bioregulators. I teach this in the foundation course of peptides. Do not stack a bunch of random shit. I see people stacking a bunch of, secretagogues. You're just going to downregulate and cause a receptor internalization faster. I see people stacking GLP-1s, which is you're hitting the same fucking mechanism. You're just stacking side effects. So I teach people, learn the mechanism, learn the actual pathways that these things go. So I teach people in the simplest fucking terms possible. I barely use technical language so that you can understand the actual story. Just understand that you should be using a bioregulator that has the most evidence, so I'm using the cortex in here. I'm going to use one that's going to support and protect the cells under a lot of load and oxidative stress. And I'm going to be using one that's going to be supporting repair. Complementary jobs, not just throwing the kitchen sink at it. I actually believe you cause interference and you're just overloading your system and just making things significantly worse for yourself when you're just stacking the whole fucking kitchen sink. Now, a supportive layer here, and this is where it gets cool. I actually add a whole class of peptides to this. So Semax, Selenk, Dihexa, and cerebrolysine. I think it works very, very well when you stack them with when your cognitive focus is high. So obviously they're not bioregulators, they're not the focus here, but the brain block is going to be the part that I'm going to be running them on. So I think that this block here for us, it's very useful for coaches who are under a lot of cognitive stress, right? You're dealing with a bunch of preps, or you're an athlete yourself, or you're someone who's taking a lot of seriously toxic compounds. The brain part is very, very important. And then I actually support something that most people don't even fucking think about. And during the fall, this is going to be the protective layer for the block that takes a lot of damage, but it doesn't announce itself until the problems are too late. So this is going to be your filtration and extraction system, your kidneys and your lungs. You can think oh, your lungs don't really do anything. I'm fucking give me a second. So PEDs for the kidneys is going to be basically what you're going to be running on that 30 to 60 days. And I paired it with bronchogen for 100 to 200 microgram ranges here for 10 to 20 days. Also, I have someone in my, I have everyone in my family actually that has suffered retinal damage. They have macular degeneration. I cover the mechanisms of how this happens and why you would want to support this. So I also add retinalamine and sigumir to this block specifically. Now, an important addition here that I've done, and I might change this based on some new information that I've just seen Brian share on social media, but high dose SS31, not a bioregulator. It's a mitochondria targeting peptides, but it carries way, way, way more evidence than the bioregulators when it comes to kidney support, including genuine regeneration data. So I run SS31 once a year at exactly 40 milligrams a day, subcutaneous alongside PEDs. Is it expensive? It's fucking expensive as shit. But you know what? Once your kidneys fuck, you're out of the sport. You're not doing steroids ever again in your life. You forget about that shit. It's never going to fucking happen ever again in your life. So run the full course. And the division of labor is very clean, right? The SS31 is doing the heavier mitochondrial energy and the regeneration work. And then PEDs is doing the tissue signaling support. So for anyone who's serious about protecting their fucking kidneys, which is the filtration of literally everything that runs through your system, I have a YouTube video breaking down the endothelial aspects of PED enhancement and the kidney aspects of it. Literally everything that is on my course is at a significantly shallower depth, but way more than any YouTube channel has. It's on my YouTube channel. You can just go to my playlist, Bioregulators, and learn all this shit. I literally teach you how to run these things for free and all this stuff. So I've had people say oh, you hide behind a paywall. I'm motherfucker, I got to pay my bills. But the SS31, the kidney evidence is still preclinical, so it's not proven, but the mechanism is very, very good. I also add GHK copper for connective tissue work and the whole maintenance block, right? It works on things that actually influence kidney and lung health, blood pressure, hematocrit training, right? Not smoking, right? So it just pairs well with this like good habits. And another one that I'm thinking about adding to it is Clotho. Because of like the effects that has been able to be demonstrated with a lot of the stuff here. Now, there's a few things that I run focused on what specifically you are running and what doses you are running. So this is another thing that I teach. I don't teach people to copy protocols. I think that's retarded. If you're, I literally have a series called "Should You Do Steroids?" and I'm teaching you 40 different things that you should consider before you even think about steroids. And I'm not even talking about side effects, okay? But like one of the things that you need to consider is like the effects that this has on your prostate. Like literally, like an enhanced athlete is going to have a lot of load on that gland, which makes prostaglandin, which is actually the deepest evidence prostate compound in the entire course that I covered. It has like, you run that on a 30 to 60 day course, but it literally has over 60 papers on it. It's the most studied bioregulator, like period. If you have a lot of like joint issues, beyond BPC 157, glow stack, whatever the fuck you're running, Sigumir, and joint support, they're gonna work very, very well together. And also like adding some like Thymogen and Vylon in a pulse, like around like when you get sick or when you're traveling. Like my dad just came in, I did a course just because, you know, he's traveling. He literally, dude, he cycled. He did like 230 miles per day for a month on a bicycle as a 68-year-old. So he literally traveled across Italy, France, and like all these countries and shit. And I'm like, you're bringing a bunch of illnesses. I'm just gonna take all of this stuff. And then like, you know, like just like you're thinking about the role of like MOTS-c, SS31, TB500, and all these types of things. Like, I think that you should be thinking about your rotation year round, like in terms of like supportive layers. And then like I said before, like in terms of like how to run them, if you're in your 30s, the emphasis should be on prevention, right? If you're in your 50s, the emphasis should be on longevity, right? In your 60s, it should be regeneration, right? If you're in your 40s, you know, performance, prevention, right? This is where wear and tear starts showing. So you can think about like compounds that are going to be adjunct that has less evidence, like endoleucin as a longevity adjunct. You can think about, you know, thymolin to lean a little bit more on the cortexin work, retinalamine for cognition and vision there as well. I use it a lot with athletes like gamers. I have some gamer athletes, and I have a lot of like competitive shooters who need a lot of like vision precision to be very good. They're straining their eyes all the fucking day. Retinalamine is going to be really good. So for like, if you're just like general longevity, dude, run the Q1 and the Q3 plus prostaglandin that I just mentioned. If you are like recovering from a brutal fucking training year, which you're running like a bunch of PEDs, run Q3, Q4, and Q1. You can skip Q2. For cognition, run Q1 and Q3 and extend the cortexin window. If you have gut issues, run the Q2 plus a dedicated like gut stack. And this is where like some other compounds that have like very poor evidence, like stomachcord and enterogen, I think they actually fit because you're literally just trying to do your best to support your system, right? There's no, if it has a lot of evidence or it does, I don't fucking give a shit. There's no evidence that, a lot of the steroids that we use even work for humans, and yet we continue taking them because it fucking works. So I think the phase that you're in also matters a lot. So during like a growth phase, especially if you're running like a lot of oral compounds, prioritize like gut and liver support above everything else. When you're on maintenance phase or in a health phase, longevity, immune, cognitive systems, right? Like this is going to be like system recovery block. So just make sure that you understand like what you're trying to support, what are the systems that take the most hit, and then provide your client or yourself with exactly like what it's needed for that particular person at that specific point in time. Don't just throw the kitchen sink at it, because again, we're trying to lower costs. We're trying to not create a lot of crosstalk, which is a problem that I solve in my course as well. But yeah, in general, I'm literally giving you for free. You can literally just copy my stack. I think it's stupid to just copy my stack because you don't have my blood markers, you don't have my system, you don't have my goals. But in general, this is basically how you would stack and prepare bioregulatory preparations to support you for the long haul. Again, remember, bioregulators, they are regenerative. There's nothing else in the entire toolkit that a coach has that is able to restore function like it used to. Bioregulators are the only thing that is able to do that, which is why I put so much emphasis on this course. Right now, I believe it's running at like close to like 6 hours long worth of like education on bioregulators. The Epidolon class alone is 50 minutes long. The brain stack I cover in detail, like very, very good detail. And I actually wanted to cover it here. We can do it briefly, but I cover it's a 1 hour long class just teaching you exactly how to understand these things so that you can apply these things yourself without ever, again, in your life having to ask, hey, bro, what's your stack? Hey, what are you running? Like, That's irrelevant. Learn to think for yourself. That's my only goal, is to teach you how to learn for yourself so that you can apply things and start thinking outside of the box. Like, how many people you know that are running GHK copper for vapors? Like, how many people do you know that are like they're running BPC 157 for fertility protocols? Well, I am. Why? Because I understand the mechanism. Like, once you understand the mechanism, you understand how versatile this toolkit is. And you have 53 bioregulators. You have 128 different peptides with various degrees of evidence. Stratify the evidence. Like, if you don't want to do that yourself because it takes time to analyze like several like papers, I'm working on this phase 2 of the peptide course right now, which is going to take you through actual academic papers. CMAX alone has over 400 papers, dude. Like if you don't want to go through all of that shit yourself, just skip day night for 1 month. Just actually 1 day. Just skip day night for 1 day. Join my community. Take the course. Learn the shit. Get the fuck out. Like, I don't care. But just please invest on this actual like block, because it's so fucking fundamental.
I was going to say, what type of fucking date nights are you taking your girl on, man? Because your course ain't that expensive. Holy shit. Skip it for a month.
It's super fucking cheap, dude. We spend more money on that on just fucking like making taco night yesterday with my dad, man.
I was gonna say, it's just like, goddamn, it's high value and there's a price tag on it, but it's not that fucking expensive, so it is worth it.
No, for real.
Penny.
Do you want to cover that one of the stacks that I use so that people can see like exactly like how, like, I know that we're running like super long podcasts and we don't have to, but like if you want to like see like how I actually like understand someone's situation, the upstream, the downstream consequences, like I can lay all that out for you and then just basically show you like how I actually like add which compound. I also pair with supplements. I teach you how to pair like every single tool that we have in medications and all this type of stuff. So I can cover that very briefly if you want.
I'm tempted to tell the people that they're going to have to get into your course to see that, but now I need to know. So let's hit on this one before we wrap it. So we're just about to hit 2 hours, but yes, give us your thought process.
Okay, you want the thyroid stack or the brain stack? I lean towards the brain stack.
Let's do it. Brain stack.
Okay. So whenever I get someone who's coming to me, they waking up at like 3 a.m. every single day. They have a flat mood. They just have this like feeling of like not being as sharp as they used to be. They have a lot of brain fog. Maybe they lost their drive. It's just brain complaints in general. The first thing I want you to hear is that most people, like, this is almost never a brain problem, because how the brain works is that the brain is actually downstream of everything else. The brain is not upstream of everything else. It runs on signals from your stress axis, your sex hormones, your thyroid, your gut, your liver. I literally paired six axes that the brain actually interacts with. And whenever like any of these systems is slipping, so to speak, the brain is going to pay the tax. So this is the stack that I like always start with underneath the brain, not at the brain specifically. So the bottom layer here, to make sure that we hit the fundamentals in place. Do not skip this, okay? It sounds very fucking retarded. It sounds very basic. Do not skip it. Mineral and cofactors, okay? There's like, we're gonna like, the brain is like very metabolically expensive. It's very unforgiving. And if you just lay a bunch of fancy peptides, but you don't have the substrates, you're just wasting the signals. And by the way, if you don't know which substrates you need whenever you're running peptides, I have a free book in the bio for my in my Instagram that you can just grab for fucking free. And I'm telling you exactly what you need to run whenever you're running anything mitochondria. I'm teaching you exactly what are the cofactors to run, because everyone teaches people like which peptides to take, but a lot of people get various degrees of results. It's because, well, you're probably not doing the things in the right ratio. You probably don't have the right soil and stuff like that. So the keystone here is going to be magnesium. I just default to glycinate, but you could go for anything else as well. Magnesium is basically the gatekeeper of your excitatory signal, the glutamate, from getting too loud and started leaking like excitatory signals into your brain, which is very, very bad. It just creates toxicity. Methylated B complex, if your methylation is stress, right? If you need like methylated forms of B12, of folate, of B6, right? Because these are all going to be cofactors that your brain is going to use to build dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, but also to clear homocysteine. So you can literally, like, I've literally reduced people's homocysteine by just adding methylated B vitamins, right? Like, it's just nothing fancy. Omega-3s, you should lean heavily towards DHA, because roughly like 1/3 of the fat in your gray matter is DHA. So it's literally the membrane material itself. Just like phosphatidylcholine is necessary if you're running anything mitochondria, because that's what the phospholipids run on. And I also want like for you when you're running your blood work, I want an omega-3 index above 8, right? Vitamin D and K2 and choline for acetylcholine, which is going to be the focus of like memory neurotransmitters. So get those things dialed in first. And actually, a surprising number of people, they improve, and we don't have to use peptides at all. So just get this stuff dialed in first, because this is like $100 that's going to last you 3 months. And it's like, you can't run the peptides and bioregulators without this stuff, okay? So it's just a foundation for everything else. On top of that foundation is going to be that core pair that I talked about of cortexin and pineolon. So I already like talk a bunch about cortexin, which is like the cortical neuroprotection. It's going to pull down like one very specific pathway. Pineolon is going to be a synthetic peptide, something called EDR. And the name is misleading, like I said, because it's not a pineal peptide itself. What it does, pineolon is neuroprotective. So pineolon literally restricts reactive oxygen species, which are like the corrosive byproducts of cellular metabolism that are going to be damaging your fucking neurons. And at higher doses, it also does work at the gene level to support serotonin production and protect the little like connecting points between your neurons to allow communication between them. It also has a hypoxia protection that with cortexin, right? Meaning you get both like brain protection under low oxygen stress as well. So very, very important. The reason it pairs so well is that you're covering both ends of the neuron's life here. You have cortexin pulling like cell death down, and you have pineolon pushing the protective and the regenerative side all the way to fuck up. So the doses are really important, but you're going to have to take a look at the course for the doses, because there's a lot of misconceptions about the doses. Now, around that core, I'm actually pairing some supportive bioregulators based on what I understand that is dragging the brain down from upstream. So I go through a very, very detailed. If you work with me, you can leave a comment here. I'm not fucking lying. I basically send you a fucking IRS level form to understand exactly what the fuck is happening with you, okay? Thymolin is going to be here if there is an immune component or inflammatory component, because immune system, it basically talks directly to your brain through cytokine signaling and through chronic low-grade inflammation, which that is the thing that primarily steals like cognitive bandwidth. So that's why you see like steroid users, whenever they're going through a health phase, they're a little bit sharper. But then whenever you start like running through a growth phase and you're putting like grams of gear in your body, you start becoming slow. I'm running grams of gear right now, just being completely honest. Do I look like I'm not cognitively sharp? Like I think that these things really work. I'm also going to be adding livogen if I see that there's some stress in the gut and the liver. Why? On a brain stack, the gut-brain axis is real. Like a beaten up gut is going to show up in your mood, in your sleep, brain fog, right? So you dose this twice a day for a couple of weeks. Add Vesogen for the component of the vascular layer, because the brain takes about 1/5 of all of your cardiac output. And all of the small vessels that are like feeding the gray matter, they take a hit for anyone who has a lipid profile that has shifted or who has high hematocrit, which is pretty much everyone in our field. So there's also some 3 non-bioregulators peptides that I add to this. So Semax goes in whenever you have high cognitive load, because it is BDNF positive, meaning it nudges brain-derived growth factor in a way that's going to help the brain form new connections. And you run that intranasally, right? Not continuously, obviously. Selenk, I'm going to be adding whenever there's like a sleep onset issue. So that also could be like anxiety interfering with focus whenever you get like a lot of caffeine or something like that. It calms your system through GABAergic modulation, but it doesn't cause dependency. And it's able to it's able to like outcompete benzos in the trials that we have. Like you don't get any of the dueling effect. You don't get any dependency from them, but also run it as a short course because it downregulates. And also DSIP, which is the delta sleep, inducing peptide. Whenever you have like a stubborn sleep cases of the person who's not responding to sleep hygiene, cycle adjustments, magnesium, right? I think the human evidence is very low, but what you need to remember about DSIP is that the dose response is U-shaped. So a low dose works and a higher dose is going to do nothing, or it's actually going to backfire and make your sleep worse. So if the SIP works for you, you're going to know within like 3 nights. If it doesn't work, you just drop it. Now, the thing that I teach the most in my course, and this is like the secret for everything else, is the secret that we broke down with Anthony Castor of like basically understanding when to add each one of these things. Sequencing is the whole game when it comes to your system, okay? Do not throw just this whole fucking stack that I told you. Don't just add it to your cart and start taking all at once. Fix the upstream driver first. So get the foundation in for at least 2 to 4 weeks. It takes a long time for your system to replenish the things that you are deficient on. Then you layer cortexin and pineal on, which is that backbone, and then you add the supporting bioregulators just based on what upstream system is contributing, and then you slot in Semax, Selenk, or DSIP more as like precision surgical tools, right? Across the year, it looks like the core pair in one block, an immune and a gut block in another part, vascular support block in a third block, and then the foundation just running the entire fucking time. So build from the bottom up. It really fucking works. Reach for the exciting peptide first, skip the substrates, and you will get a very, very small lift that is going to plateau every single fucking time. There's literally like I've never seen I've never seen anyone like run this stuff like properly and get absolutely no fucking results. Literally, I've never seen that. I think that the presentation of the people who are like running like our type of shit all the fucking time is someone who's like always fucking complaining of their drive. They can't focus in the way they used to. They wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning every fucking day. Their mood is always flat. They feel anxious. The answer is almost never to drop a nootropic and hope for the best. The brain is downstream of everything else in the body. And as a PED user, the things upstream of the brain, they're running hotter, they're running faster, and they're also running more unpredictably than they would in an unenhanced person. So I'm legit making you a promise that like, if you are taking this stack, you will have noticeable benefits. It will fix the problem that you were having. I've run this through people in preps. That I see people failing this all the time whenever they don't understand exactly what I'm trying to say. So like one of the risks of doing a consult with a lot of people is that you don't really get a lot of deliverables. I actually deliver a package to you, and I also add a follow-up and continuous support inside of my community whenever you do a consultation with me, because you're going to have to make adjustments. And I'd rather you pull that like from someone who has the knowledge and the experience of it instead of just trying to figure shit out yourself based on like fucking Reddit posts and Instagram posts, right? So there's 4 ways that this is going to fail. So just pay attention, and then I'm going to wrap up here. The first failure is when there's like HPA dysregulation with secondary mood and motivation collapse. So picture someone who just finished a fucking hard phase. I'm sure this has happened to you who's listening. Like you just finished this hard phase, you were feeling really good, but then you crash really fucking hard. Normally you start feeling better doing a health phase. For this time, you're getting to get a worse response. Why? Because the cortisol awakening response now is blunted. So your diurnal cortisol is flat, your morning energy is gone, your drive is fucking gone. So there's like a pervasive flatness. Then people sometimes even mistake for depression, but it's just a downregulated stress response in a system that's just carrying load for way too fucking long. It's just living off of cortisol, and now that cortisol response has crashed. I literally see this on a Dutch test. You can see this very, very clearly on a spit cortisol test, a multi-point test. You can also see that very good. So like the interventions here, you shouldn't stack stimulants. I see people just stacking stimulants. Stimulants just give you a very short window of like function, but then they crash you way deeper on the lower end. So the interventions that matter for someone that has an HPA issue with the secondary mood and the motivation collapse coming in secondarily, like please understand every single word that's coming out of my mouth. You need to route exactly what the issue is. If you don't understand exactly what the issue is and which layer specifically is, which one is primary, secondary, tertiary, this will not work. So for this person, magnesium, adaptogens, Selenk, cortexin, this is going to be basically like helping you to fix this problem. The second failure that I see is a neuroinflammatory and cerebrovascular drift. So this is going to be like the long-term enhanced person who's basically running on like hematocrit high all the fucking year, and who has a lipid peroxidation who's accumulating, who has a lot of like endothelial dysfunction that you will not see because like it's only showing up as reduced cognitive bandwidth. It's only showing as slower processing speed. It's only showing as like exercise-induced cognitive lift, right? Reduced cognitive lift. So the interventions for this person are going to be upstream cardiovascular, so HDL support, hematocrit support, cycle adjustments, cortexin to address some of the lipid peroxidation pathway and the caspase 8 issues, omega-3 at the DHA dose to like feed the resolvent and the neuroprotectant pathways that are going to resolve that inflammatory signal rather than suppress it. And then you add in pineal on to restrict the reactive oxygen species down to the cellular level. The other issue that I see when people try to copy this stack is like the neurotransmitter depletion. Whenever like you have a case of like dominant sleep disruption, dominant anxiety patterns, or you have both, this is a person who's presenting to you with clear serotonin, dopamine, and GABA tone that basically shifted over the course of the years, due to the cumulative load of the chronic stimulant intake, disrupted sleep architecture, high androgens, right? So anxiety becomes more frequent. You start waking up, a little bit more like often during the middle of the night. It takes a little bit longer for you to fall asleep. And in the morning, you actually feel keyed up rather than restored. That's when you wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning and you're like fucking ready for the day, right? So the interventions for this person are going to be a methylated support plus Selenk intranasal for those like pretty like anxiety driven cognitive states, plus some like careful, sleep restoration that's going to respect the disrupted architecture rather than just trying to like steamroll it with fucking sedatives. Add in pineal onto this for the serotonin gene activation at the transcriptional level, and you're good to go. The last problem that I see people having most of the time is just cumulative load with reduced bandwidth. So the way that this shows is like slower processing speed and just that sense that you have of like, I'm just not as sharp as I used to be. I was feeling this way earlier in the year. So this is often like an athlete or a coach who's just running a lot of like decision making all day long. You just like have to make a bunch of decisions, and you notice that your resilience, cognitively speaking, is a little bit shallower than it used to be. So for this, you want a BDNF positive interventions. You want neurotrophic support via cortexin. You want some pineal courses for the synaptic plasticity support, and you want the underlying foundation of choline, acetylcholine synthesis, membrane fluidity. Cognitive relevant the magnesium pool with like something like L-threonate, right? And if the sleep is the architecture is broken, you just have to understand that there's no amount of daytime cognitive support that can compensate for that. So you need to restore the cognitive, the sleep foundation first, which is why whenever I have a client joining in, the first thing you're going to do is do my client exclusive course on sleep. So most people, whenever you're starting to work with someone, they're going to have an overlap of one of these 4 failure models. Single mode presentations, they're rare. I've never seen someone that only has one of them. The work that you're going to have to do, even if you're at home and you're just like, oh, I just like to do this shit myself, good fucking luck, is you need to identify which one is the dominant mode. And then you need to define what is the sequence, the proper sequence to intervene on that address first. And then you're going to layer secondary support on top of it once the dominant mode actually starts moving in the right direction. So like I said, you cover every single one of these layers. The mineral and cofactor layer is going to come in first. Then you're going to go in for the cortexin, right, which is the strongest bioregulator we have. Then you're going to lower in with the tripeptide pinealon for the CCTGC sequence motif and the 5-tryptophan hydroxylase gene stimulation of serotonin. You want to run cortexin for the caspase 8 inhibition, the IL-6 and the caspase 3 modulation as well, which cortexin is shown to improve. You want the natural cytomax like sirlutin to be layered in as a standard like a pairing mode, because it's basically the centerpiece here is going to be cortexin and pinealon, but you can add in sirlutin as like something that can actually like work on the central nervous system, which like none of the other bioregulators can do. And then you're going to layer in the supportive bioregulators for the immune, for the gut, for the vascular layers, and then like just earn the spot of like something like an ACTH like 4 to 10 sequence modulator like Cmax, like earn the dose of your Selenk and stuff for the GABAergic modulation, like based on the actual presentation that you have in front of you. Please do not just copy the stack, and please understand that the logic of the sequence is actually even more important than the compounds themselves. You have to address the upstream systems that are driving all of these brain issues first. If you have HPA dominant issues, restore HPA function first. If the thyroid is off, fix the thyroid first, right? A brain stack that you just throw on top of an unaddressed conversion suppressing thyroid case will be very disappointing. You will not get results because you basically like, it's like insulin sensitivity, right? Like if your brain has a lot of like hypometabolism, you need to address the metabolic layer first. If hematocrit is the issue, perfusion is compromised, get your hematocrit and cycle adjusted first. The brain interventions, they work best when they on top of an addressed system. You will not know whether your brain intervention is failing or whether the upstream driver is overwhelming it if you do not do things in the proper order. So please follow that. And then also, please follow the biofeedback and the assessment labs that I have in on the course to be able to measure whether this shit is actually moving the needle for you. Because like, if you cannot measure that these things are actually doing anything, what the fuck is the point? So there are ways to adjust these things. There are ways to measure it. I literally route every single bioregulator by which things you can measure, which things you cannot measure, which are the exotic and the most common measurements that you can use. biofeedback for daily like assessment of whether this thing is doing something or not. And then also understand that you might have to tweak the stack. Like the way that I present like steroid use, you are in a relationship with your body, man. Like, and you have to understand how to talk the body's own language and how to communicate with it. So if you're running this stuff and your subjective markers of your brain are just basically like your clarity has not improved. I like to see a 2-point improvement on a 1 to 10 scale whenever I'm like tracking some specific things with the clients. Recheck your HPA, recheck your thyroid, your metabolic rates, your hematocrit, right, before you add the bioregulatory label. If you add cortexin in a week or two and the person is reporting no change at all, do not just automatically run another course. Just reassess whether the dose was right, because cortexin is dose dependent. Some of them are not. If you want to figure out which ones are and which ones aren't, just do the course, because, like I said, it's a lot of hours to go through this shit. There's also a subset of people who are non-responders to cortexin. This is very documented. So just chasing dose escalation in a non-responder is going to be obviously unproductive. So understand exactly like what you want out of this phase. If you're running pineal on for like a 2-week course and there's no felt change in cognitive bandwidth or your mood at all, it may be like some issue with an HPA driven issues rather than synaptic plasticity driven issue. So the pineal mechanism, like it goes more through like the serotonergic pathway and the neurotropic pathway. But if someone has like an HPA collapse, there will not like get anything out of pineal at all. If you feel like the first like lift with Cmax by like day 3, Cmax you can actually feel on the first day. Just run like a 10 to 14 day course, then take time off. I explained very clearly why you need to take time off from these compounds. But if there's no change, drop it. Selenk, same fucking thing. You notice in the first 3 nights, if you get drowsiness, the dose is too high or the timing is wrong. If you start seeing like an issue where the person doesn't respond to the dose, just drop it and move to the next thing. Same thing with the fucking DSIP. Just drop it, move over to the next stuff. And then like, obviously there's some other types of considerations, right? There's estrogen and brain function, right? There's androgens and, HPA suppression. There's HPA rebound. There's, maintenance of your physiological, natural production that needs to take place. Even though you're shutting down the HPTA axis, you need progesterone, right? Because progesterone is going to increase GABA-A receptor, is going to modulate microglial activation, is going to have direct neurotropic steroid effects. Like you need to take all of these things in consideration whenever you're running a stack. I just want to like leave this clear. I'm not trying to make this more complicated than it is. A lot of people accuse me of that. I'm just trying to give you absolutely everything that you need to run this shit on your own, be able to assess whether it worked or not, and then also understand what are the failure points whenever something doesn't work as it used to work. So that's basically all you need to know about a fucking 1 hour presentation in maybe 10 minutes. I really recommend that you actually like spend the time and learn about this stuff, because it's very, very rewarding. When you see someone that like, especially dealing with like clients who are like 60 and stuff like that, and you see that they're like, their numbers are moving up, they're cognitively sharp. Like a cognitively sharp 60-year-old is rare. We know our politicians. It's like it's so fucking rewarding. And the more toolkits that you have, the more tools you have in your toolkit, not only the better is your business is going to run, but you're also going to be able to change more lives. That is the most important thing. We are here to change people's lives, and people's lives are not simple. They are complex. Human beings are complex sets of organisms that are constantly changing, constantly evolving, constantly undergoing different variations. You need to take all of these things in consideration, which is why I said this is a complex system. It's made of multiple parts who are always interacting and moving around. Literally, not even your mitochondria stays in one place. Like everything fucking moves around. So just take care of the people who are in front of you. And I truly believe bioregulators are an underused leverage point that should earn a place in your stack. You should be able to run these things clearly. And if you want to understand how to run these things clearly, honestly, there's no other place on the internet for you to run about bioregulators. So that's why I created the course. That's why it's priced the way that it is. I don't want you guys paying $1,000 to $3,000 like I do to pay for my mentors. I want you guys spending a fucking $100, which is the price of a vial of whatever the fuck you're running. Learn all of this shit, get the support you need, and be good to go from there.
Real optimization comes from deep understanding of how things work. I say that all the time. This has been a 2+ hour deep dive on this subject, which I will be releasing as one episode, which is weird for me to say to people watching this, because if you're watching this, you know, but I know you have a deeper understanding now. If you want a deeper understanding, I heavily recommend diving into Nathan's work deeper than this. And it does go deeper than this, believe you me, but he does such a good job of digesting it for you and then giving it to you in a way that you can understand. Nathan, before we wrap this up, where can anybody who might just be being exposed to you now find this course, find all of your work?
Okay, so just to give you an understanding here, my peptide course is 5 parts. As of now, it's going to be 6 parts. So we start with foundations of peptide and protocol design, which is 26 lessons. Okay, just to understand like receptor dynamics, stacking conflicts, phase structuring, and all this type of stuff. I then covered a peptide Bible, which has 46 lessons. It's over 7 hours long, just on every major peptide that exists. We then go to the peptide Apocrypha, which I love that name, which is an overview of all the peptide companions. That's over 40 lessons long. We go then move to a peptide use in practice. So that's over 20 protocols over the course of 42 lessons, where I'm not just giving you a stack. If you join my community, you will not find protocols. You will find me explaining how the protocols work so that you can create your protocols yourself. And then we move over to the Bioregulator course, which is going to be about 100 lessons long, about like 8 hours worth of education. Where can you find that? In the link in my bio, in the link on my YouTube videos, in like literally every single place on the internet that I'm on. It's a community on WAP. Don't think of it in terms of a community. Think of it in terms of an educational platform, because we're not just there to like fucking throw conversation around. If you guys want to do that, fucking let's do it. Let's fucking talk, because I need more people to have to talk with. But just understand, inside of my community, we are getting close to now to over 500 lessons. Over thyroid is 120 lessons long. I have specific protocols for like how to fix sleep with trenbolone. Literally everyone who run the protocol, you don't have sleep problems. How to fix appetite issues with Anadrol. How to be able to megadose growth hormone without digging into the side effects. How to raise your doses and like be able to run this shit. Like there's testimonials in there of people who run the protocol for like one night and they get like 70% symptom resolution. So I think it's a fantastic and invaluable resource to have, which is why I created it. I created this resource because I wish I fucking had this whenever I started. So join the community, come fucking hang out. I would love to learn a little bit more about your opportunity. And also, if you want to work together one-on-one, FYI, if you join my community, you get more out of a consult, and it's also 70% off. You get a 90-minute consultation as opposed to a 45-minute. You get a 12-week follow-up of 30 minutes long. You get a full package telling you exactly what to do, the failure modes to identify, how to change your stack, all of this type of shit. You get a video companion. You get a written companion. You get daily support from me inside of the community. That's everything that I offer. It's like just the next step is literally coaching. But coaching is, I understand, is a significant, like bigger investment. So you have to like just do what you can. Like that's my motto for all of my clients watching. You guys already know you can't always do what you must, but you must always do what you can. So do the bare minimum, which is at least fucking have a deep understanding of the tools that you're using with people.
Absolutely love it. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the DDT Method podcast, and we will see you next time.